All right. Another Saturday night. Another Saturday night. Shoot the breeze. If you're with me, drop a one. Hold on. Had some feedback going on here because I had a couple of tabs open. But yeah, if you're with me, drop a one. Let me know that you can hear my voice, and let me know that it's not echoey or anything like that. I had some tabs open with tonight's episode. Okay, Pro Black Perspective drops a one. So I appreciate that from Oni. So another Shoot the Breeze tonight. My apologies for not being around last week. Um, but tonight, what do we have in store tonight? Tonight, we're going to talk about the importance and richness of African languages. We're going to talk about capitalism and how it should be appreciated, including tippu tip. We're going to talk about how will Africa adjust to life on the Hothouse Earth. We're going to talk about, and I'm sure you guys have seen it. Drop a one if you've ever seen these videos on social media, particularly Facebook. Facebook is pretty good for this, and Instagram. You know those videos where a guy, he looks broke or whatever, he tries to talk to this banging female and she disses him, and then he walks over to like a car, a fire ass car, Bugatti or some shit, and then she comes back. We're gonna talk about that phenomenon. And we're gonna talk about certain black people that we're gonna have to fight. I had some recent experience with some of these black folks that honestly you might have to fight some of these folks, and we're gonna talk about that tonight. So you guys do me a favor, like the video, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it even via email to people who you think would appreciate the content. Let's really start getting the numbers up on these episodes. Else it kind of doesn't make sense doing them after a while. So, share it with your folks. Let's get the numbers to a respectable number. Let's get it back to what it was before the nonsense happened. And on the other side of the intro here, I will drop Shoot the Breeze topic number one tonight. So stay tuned.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio. Welcome to the Bitter Medicine Podcast, where it's all about Black empowerment. Our show focuses on Black news and entertainment, arts, science, economics, history, people, and strategies that uplift, empower, and motivate Africans within the diaspora. And now your host, whose favorite color is black, Goku.
Welcome back to the Bitter Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Koku. Just want to remind you guys before we get the show rolling that this show is part of a podcast network called KWAZ Radio. There are other shows on the network you are invited to tune into.
This is
Hello there, dear listener. We hope you're enjoying this lovely discussion.
If you're not already aware, this show is part of a podcast network called KWAZ Radio, a Pan-African nationalist and Garveyite network committed to showcasing the rich and varied thoughts of African people. We have an exciting lineup of shows that we think you'll enjoy, including
the Bitter Medicine Podcast.
I think black people require too much buy-in. Like, we constantly have to sell black people on things that are beneficial to black people.
The Pro-Black Perspective Podcast.
I'm fearful that our people are not really studying how to get ahead, and we're kind of, continually staying behind.
The Harsh Reality Podcast.
To me, it don't matter. I think people are so dumbed down, it wouldn't matter what you reveal to them. They still are in the matrix. They're in the simulation. They're going to keep doing what they did. They lemmings. So to me, it don't matter, man.
The Learning Curve Podcast.
Sexual access has never given you economic empowerment. The only person who has ever been economically empowered by a sexual relationship is the wasp and his woman.
The Cassidra Cheek Show.
When we start rising up to fight for our own, I guarantee you they'll stop doing what they're doing. I guarantee you they would have let their brother go. They was waiting to see what black folks was going to do.
Brother Bakari Podcast.
Black people love to claim folks that hate them, right? They're a slave master, and they are ashamed of who they really are.
The 4Kast Radio.
Like, if you pray to the same deity as, like, your enemy, and that God blesses your enemy more than you may want to reconsider who you're praying to,
And Tanzan, African Mind.
Africans generally are welcoming of everyone. Sometimes, to my consternation, I think that they should be less, welcoming.
If you love our podcast network, we would be grateful if you could rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on social media, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and check out our website at www.kwazradio.com for more information. Thank you for tuning in. And now, back to the program.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Welcome back to the Bitter Medicine Podcast. This is the Shoot the Breeze segment. I want to thank all of you who are in the chat. I see Ms. Vita is in the chat. Only from the Pro-Black Perspective is out there. There's a few other lurkers who haven't showed themselves, but I appreciate you guys all the same. Let me welcome in the first panelist tonight, Buana. Buana, how are you tonight?
I'm good, brother. How are you?
I'm hanging in there.
Yes. I hope you and the farm is well. And even if they're not, I'm sure your shoulders are broad enough that if they need a shoulder to cry on, you are there. So I'm good though.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thanks for coming. Oni, welcome to the panel. How are you this week?
I'm cool, man. How's everything with you?
I'm hanging in there.
Great, man.
Yo, thanks for coming through tonight. I almost didn't come on tonight, but I was going to come back next week. But I said, let me come talk with you guys and, take my mind off of certain things, right? Let's get into it, man. Shoot the Breeze topic number 1 this week is how do we fight these black people? That's a very interesting prompt. Let's see what the attached video says. Let me share my screen. How do we fight these black people? I'm going to play the video as I always do, and then we will discuss it.
And now for a brief history of slavery. Here's the first thing you need to know. Slavery was not invented by white people. It did not start in 1619 when the first slaves came to Jamestown. It existed before then. It did not start in 1492, when Columbus discovered the native Taino tribe hoped that he would help them defeat their aggressive neighbors, the Caribs. The Caribs enslaved the Taino and, on occasion, served them for dinner. Slavery existed in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East. The word slave actually comes from the Slavs of Eastern Europe. Millions of them, all white by the way, were captured and enslaved by Muslims in the 9th century and later by the Ottoman Turks. Slavery existed when they controlled the Mediterranean and most of Europe from the 1st through the 5th centuries. Slavery existed when Alexander the Great conquered Persia in the 4th century BC. It was so common that Aristotle simply considered it natural. The slave master model was just how the world operated in the great philosopher's day. Slavery existed during the time of the ancient Egyptians 5,000 years ago. As far back as we can go in human history, we find slavery. As renowned historian John Steele Gordon notes from time immemorial, slaves were a major item of commerce. As much as a third of the population of the ancient world was enslaved. Here's the second thing you need to know. White people were the first to formally put an end to slavery. In 1833, Britain was the first country in the history of the world to pass a Slavery Abolition Act. They were quickly followed by France, who in 1848 abolished slavery in her many colonies. Then, of course, came the 13th Amendment in the United States Constitution. After centuries of human slavery, white men led the world in putting an end to the abhorrent practice. That includes the 300,000 Union soldiers, overwhelmingly white, who died during the Civil War. Now, am I saying that this makes white people better than anyone else? Of course not. My purpose here is to simply tell the truth, and the truth is that human history is complicated. No one, regardless of skin color, stands guiltless. Yet today we are never told to consider the murderous Persian Empire or the cannibalism of indigenous tribes of North and South America or the heinous actions under the imperialistic Muslim, Chinese, Mongol, or Japanese empires, to name just a few. Instead, we're told that slavery is a white phenomenon. And like all persistent lies, this lie spawns a bunch of other lies. On social media, I come across extraordinary depictions about how Africans lived like pharaohs before Europeans came and laid waste to their paradise. I wish any of this were true, but it's not. It's a fantasy. The truth is that Africans were sold into slavery by other Black Africans, and in many cases, sold for items as trivial as gin and mirrors. Whites didn't go into the interior and round up the natives. They waited on the coast for their Black partners to bring them Black bodies. The stark reality is that our lives had very little value to our ancestors. Here's the third thing you need to know. If you think slavery is a relic of the past, you're wrong. There are some 700,000 slaves in Africa today, right now. That's the lowest estimate that I could find. Other sources say there are many more. For context, that's almost twice as many slaves as were ever brought to the United States. Child soldiers, human trafficking, forced labor, these are the conditions that currently exist within the same sub-Saharan region where the transatlantic slave trade originated. African bodies are being sold today like they were sold then, and no, they are not being purchased by any country of white men. In fact, slavery, by any traditional definition, is exclusively practiced today within non-white countries. But we hear almost nothing about that. Just like we hear nothing about how slavery was universal until good people in Europe and America ended it 2 centuries ago. Why? Because our so-called leaders, Black and white, wouldn't profit from it. Black victimhood is nothing if not profitable. It elects politicians and funds racial grievance groups. And if Black Americans began to view themselves as partners in the American dream, if we embraced the patriotic spirit that holds all men are created equal, the patriotic spirit that is our real heritage, then the race hustlers would soon be out of business. And who wants that? I'm Candace Owens, author of Blackout for Prager University. Thank you for watching this video. To keep PragerU videos free, please consider making a tax-deductible donation.
Yeah, Candace Owens strikes again. I see Jose is in the chat saying LOL. Ms. Vita said, this witch will get hers. We don't fight her. We promote our reality and truth. These people will always promote their lies. We need not fall into their trap. Daily Affirmations by Pauline, my hometown people, said, good evening. Trigger Happy 262 Plus says, Candace Owens is a white woman. Interesting comment. I fully disagree with that, but interesting comment. How do we fight these black people? Let me start with Oni. Oni, how do we fight these black people?
Wait, you disagree that Candace Owens a white woman? It's because she's not white?
Exactly. That's a woman doing the work for white folks, right? But go ahead.
Yeah, look, so what I would say is this. So there's this video. I think I might have posted it for Shoot the Breeze, but it might be another week it's going to show up. But it talks about different propaganda techniques. And one of the propaganda techniques they call is card stacking, you know? So I decided, let me look this up and, you know, share what it is. So it's a technique of persuasion that attempts to influence opinion through deliberate distortions, as in suppressing information, overemphasizing selected facts, manipulating statistics, and quoting rigged or questionable research, you know? Now, granted, you know, these aren't facts per se, because there were plenty of black nations that abolished slavery, including, of course, Haiti, but not exclusive to Haiti. As in, you know, back in Africa, there was tons of African opposition to slavery, as well as, you know, when she said, well, there's, you know, mirrors and all that kind of stuff that people were sold for. Like, a lot of it is you know, she has her orders, you know, like you just said, she has her orders and she's fulfilling those orders. But, you know, it always comes back to, for me, it's like, well, I mean, that's the cost of her freedom, you know? And, you know, as much as I don't like it, hold on a second, this kid's having too much fun. All right, but did I just catch you having fun? Right? From the Boondocks. Anyway, but what I'm saying is that I mean, like, she clearly has her orders, you know? And I mean, I don't like it. But that's why I kind of pivot away from America, because I start to, like, you have to, I realize that in America, you're going to get orders. You know what I mean? Like, in America, you're going to get orders. And I mean, there's a few of us who don't take orders from Whitey, right? But it's so few and far in between that it's like, you know, as much as I would love if it were more popular, I know it's not. I know it's not going to be. You know? I know it's not going to be. And so, yeah, like, yeah, she's card stacking. It's a typical technique. White folk put her up to it. And maybe she believes in herself. You know? She might get the wake-up call someday. She might not. Right? How do you fight? Like, the thing about fighting people is, like, I say to myself is this. What are you fighting people for? Like, Candace is doing this shit for her white overlords. I get that. Like, what would I fight her for? Honestly. You know? Like, if like, she's not in my way per se. You know, I'm finna be on the continent, you know, get my shit right. You know what I mean? And that's all I should be focusing on, in my opinion. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I feel like the sound is cutting out. Is that just me or
yeah, it's you.
Or Buana, do you hear it as well?
No, I can hear you. I can hear you. It was just doing it a little bit. Not much. Not much at all.
Okay. All right. Well, Buana, what's it?
Um, for me, for those who want to fight, people like these, first let me say, if you don't know that Candace Owens,
are you speaking?
Let me say.
Yeah, Coco, I think it's your internet.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you, but I think it's Coco's internet.
Okay, so let me see if I can go take this by the numbers. So for people who don't know that Candace Owens is a right-wing mercenary. I'm talking. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? 1 2 1 2.
Yeah, Buana, go ahead. I got you. Go ahead.
Yeah. So for people who don't know that she works for PragerU. Now, for people who don't know, Dennis Prager is a white ring extremist. He is the worst of the worst, and she decides to work for him, which is fine. Black women work for slave owners from back in the day. That's not a new phenomenon. So for people who would seek to take up a battle against people like these, the only thing I would suggest is reading. You just need to read all the things she said is easily refutable by just simply picking up a book. And she understands that the majority of our people won't pick up books. So since she doesn't have any kind of sources for the things that she is discussing, she's just talking as the voice of authority and using generalized statements. And the devil is always in the details. For instance, when she talked about the Arawaks and the people in the Bahamas when they first came, I wonder where you get your sources from. Are you getting it from the writers like Christopher Columbus, them whose genocide is? Who are you getting it from? Who are you getting these details from? Are you getting them from the native peoples themselves who call themselves cannibals? I don't know. No one knows. That's just a question mark. When she talks about slavery being not unique, well, that's true, but chattel slavery is a unique institution. Chattel slavery, that means a person is not a human being anymore. He is no more different from an oxen or a horse. It's ridiculous. It's easily refutable. When she talks about the slavery still going on, she neglects to talk about the sexual trafficking that occurs all over the world, in particular even Western countries, where they traffic and enslave women to do their sexual escapades all over the world. Some of them are even being kidnapped now. You see, and white men are some of them are the generals that are generals of these kinds of things that's going on in the world. They traffic in enslavement still to this day, but she primarily puts it on the Africans. You know what I mean? Really, man, you could just go through the numbers and just refute all of the nonsensical things she was talking about. But if our people are not interested in fighting, I would understand they will walk away from the conversation. For someone who would really want to come and engage in a real dialogue with her, all you need to do is some simple reading to refute the nonsense she's talking about. And she said that the white Americans are responsible for stopping slavery to English. She ain't mentioned nothing but Haiti in 1804. Nothing about it at all. Why is that? They don't exist in history? It's ridiculous. I mean, really, it's ridiculous. And then she refers to an authority figure called John Steele Gordon. Oh, what is he all about? What did he say? It's just a clip-it note, and it may be out of context. Now, I understand that she is working for her paymasters, but I would only suggest for people who are willing to take up any kind of conversation with this crazy person. Look, 1833, and the revolution was in 1804. So even there is a difference in almost 30 years. She's talking about when Desalegn and them say, well, no more slavery will be taking place on this island, or any enslaved person was to reach the shores of Haiti, they are free man. What is that? Just because it's not on a document, that means it wasn't verified or it's not real. We know that even though the act itself is written in a certain time, that doesn't mean within the borders of the United States, slavery didn't still continue. There's so many different falsehoods, so easily refutable. But like I say, man, I have no energy for these people. They're gonna say what they're gonna say. Our people, if they want to be, blindly led like sheep, whatever. if our audience is particularly white folks and she want to satiate their the shame of them being enslavers, whatever. I am dealing in the real world where you have real information right now that is easily accessible, and they have their information, we have our information. So I'll leave it there.
You know what Buana said about like how he says, look, you got to do chattel slave, like it's chattel slavery, or you know, the sex trafficking, all that kind of stuff. That kind of a response to each of her points, you know, maybe after she makes it, that might be an effective type of quote unquote fight. Because one thing I could say, because it seems like her audience is white folk, really. But one thing I could say is that when you can refute somebody and back it up, you know, word for word, bar for bar, if you will, right? When you can do that, like that is like what she's doing can be effective for turning people towards, you know, against her, you know, because when you expose her, you know, purposely, you know, like I said, card stacking, but when you expose her for purposely doing misinformation, purposely, you know, glossing over the fact that, you know, we're talking about chattel slavery, not, you know, like indentured servitude, right? Or glossing over the fact that that people had to fight England. You know, like black people had to fight England, and England's only stopped, you know, the enslavement of African people, or mostly only stopped the enslavement of African people because of you know, because of how much we were, you know, fighting them, right? Because of that, it's like, yeah, you can't like you have to like, I think you can use that as a way of propaganda to say, look, this is what they're doing. This is how they're trying to convert you, but here's the truth behind it. When you do that, you know, that truth thing, and you show your facts, you show your evidence, yeah, people then you know, can come to your side. So what she's doing, it might seem bad, but you can spin it, you could flip it and make it really good. You know, but it only takes us flipping it and making it good.
Yeah, I hear you all on that. How do I want to put this? I real talk, I think people like her should be dealt with. The problem is we don't direct those kind of efforts towards these type of traitorous people. Instead, we got to deal with people trying to direct, you know, those kind of violent efforts towards their own folks, their own black folks. But, you know, she's just like the other scoundrels who get away with doing damage to black folks, you know, the George Zimmermans, you know, this, that, and the other, right? No one touches them. You know, I'm not even trying to use her as some type of, you know, what's the word? Some type of anti-propaganda to get, no. The example she should be is being dealt with. And I think that's the next step of our evolution. If we're going to be serious about changing this situation, these people got to be dealt with. Because right now, real talk, this brother, Pan-Africanism strikes back. He's doing some of the same shit Candace Owens is doing now. And why is that? Because these folks see that it's profitable to do this stuff. And the more people who do it, the more difficult it's going to be for you to counter what these folks are saying. Some of these folks just have to be dealt with, you know? Jose in the chat says, this is the 30s Nazi Germany all over again. She has to be mentally unstable to do it. I don't think she's mentally unstable either. You know, I don't think she's paid. She's a paid performer. And what's happening is these paid performers and grifters, they're not worrying about no backlash or no retribution from the black community at all. This is why so many of these people are doing this nonsense out here. By the way, shout out to Brother Bakari who's out there. Does anyone want to add any last words to this prompt?
Yeah. I mean, like you said, right? You said Oh, is that okay? I thought it was Buona. Like you just said just then, that's the issue with living in another man's country. Because like essentially, like what you're saying is, like essentially, this white man writes the laws in this country, and so his laws protect coons. You know what I mean? That's why I when I'm like, if when it comes to America, I'm just like, you know what? I don't even care. Because as long as you're under another man's laws, he's going to protect the worst among you. Somebody actually told me that in order to become a big celebrity, and this is a conspiracy theory, but still, they're like, in order to be a big celebrity, the white man got to know that you are low down, dog. Like they got to know you low down. They said that because they were like, they knew that Bill Cosby had done whatever he did. Now, I'm not saying I like Bill Cosby, somewhat, right? But what I'm saying is that, like as far as you look at Jay-Z's history, you look at Beyonce's history, you look at other people's history, right? They have, their self-destructive ways. So what I'm saying is that, yeah, I absolutely agree that if people are fucking around, they should be finding out. But that apply, but like you can't, like you could do that in America, and you're gonna end up in a prison cell, and things are not gonna change. That's why I say I don't know why. Like if black folk choose to be under another man's laws, you're choosing to have a losing situation. You're in a sinking ship, and the only thing that's going to get you out of the sinking ship, and you're not going to fix it. You're just going to either end up dead, in prison, or you're going to give up. That's why me personally, I'm telling y'all, I say repatriation. If you don't want to do repatriation, that's fine, but do not be surprised that the coons are protected, because that's what it is. I had to tell this. I should have. What I'm saying is there are, like, you can go and say, look, I'm going to go assault Candace Owens for this video. You can do that, but it's without a doubt they're going to find you and lock you up. You know what I mean? Without a doubt. I mean, I don't know, unless you are very evasive, they are going to find you and lock you up. And that's what it is. So it's like, as long as you inside another man's laws. Now, if Candace Owens was doing this in Africa, it wouldn't be the same, because it depends on, what the political system is at hand. The political system may say, oh no, you ain't doing that shit, chop him up. You know what I mean? Oh, you ain't doing that shit, you're out. Right? Like you said, if you back home, if somebody was to go online and be like, well, we did this, so on and so forth, chop him up, because that's black laws. But if you are under white laws, the coons are protected. And that's why it's like, we tend to underestimate the fact that we are in another people's country, and they are writing the laws. And as long as they're writing the laws, yeah, you're fucked over. That's why I'm telling you, just like we have to leave. Like, you can't fight that shit. And if you do fight that shit, you're going to be throwing away your life for nothing. Like a lot of these brothers that, they say, look, we get up, kill somebody, blah, blah, blah. They do that. They locked away. That's it. A lot of them black revolutionaries, we just heard about them. Matter of fact, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we were like, rest in peace to this dude, right? He's there for 40 fucking years. 40 fucking years. His life gone. And Candace Owens is out. So I'm just saying, yeah, you could, we could be like, yeah, there's only political consequences. But like, reality is this: you don't control the political situation. So you just got to go somewhere where the political situation is in your favor, and it's not in America. And it's like we either come to terms with that or we don't. But it's like, yeah, I mean, yeah, there's no consequence for the Candace Owens. Of course not.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I would resist. I would resist the action to try to harm people like her. And here's why I say that. Because I understand the sentiment of the brothers, I understand it, But if you stop her from saying what she has to say, that means you can't get a chance to say what you have to say. because the pendulum swings both ways. It swings both ways, brother. So I mean, she could talk her nonsense when she want to talk, as long as I get a turn. You know what I mean? If you want to go into this, entertain this back and forth business, I want to have my right to say what I have to say too. So I don't want to prohibit her from saying what she want to say. You know, now if she was in a country like some countries, like these so-called third world countries, so-called, you can't say certain. I remember when Pendon was in power, our first prime minister. Now, it's the crap job at a point that he started to do. You couldn't say anything if you worked in government or if you worked in anywhere, because your career, your lifestyle would have been finished if you was trying to make money in this country. You know what I mean? So I understand. I see the two worlds. I see the worlds where you live in a country where speech is prohibited, and I see where you live in a world where you could say the things that you need to say, and you could speak truth to so-called power. I just wouldn't want the opportunity to do that. And I'm saying that if you stop her from saying what she has to say, that means you don't get a chance either. Because what they can say, discrimination. That's how I go in America. So I just wanted to put that little bug out there.
Yeah, I'm hearing that, but I'm not talking about. In fact, I don't even want to say too much here, but I'm not talking about, trying to get your word out in the mainstream because she's out in the mainstream. I know that. Listen, I know that there was a time when black folks took care of an old sellout, and I think we still have certain apparatus at our disposal. It's being misused. I hinted at that when I first spoke about it. It's being misused because it's being turned on your own people. But this apparatus that we do have, we got to give it better direction or whatever it is, but it needs to get rid of the turncoats. Because I'm going to tell you something. You see my man there, what's my man name again? My man there in Korea, South Korea. I remember a couple years ago, one of them dudes was a turncoat. And funny enough, I don't know if you guys saw it. It might have been 10 years ago. The turncoat dude was in the airport somewhere. And two South Korean women took him out. And it wasn't in South Korea. It was somewhere else in Europe or something like that. They took him out, sprayed something in his face, killed him, and bounced. Like, what I'm saying is, and again, I've said too much already, but what I'm saying is certain things need to be dealt with, and it should be understood that, hey, if you step out of line, we know who has the power. We know they have the ability to hire you to be their spokesperson and stuff. But if you go too far with this shit, there's consequences. See, we don't like to deal with consequences. We are afraid to deal with consequences. There's supposed to be consequences. And I think when we allow our society to just roam on with no fear of consequences, no fear of having to be accountable, we end up with the Candace Owens publicly. Anyway, I want to thank
Coco.
Yeah.
Who gets my question becomes, who gets to determine who the turncoats and the sellouts are? Because it ain't the stuff again, it's Owens, because the people on the so-called right, they have their views, and some of their views are detestable. It's very difficult to hear. But Don Lemon got to go too, If I were, I guess I consider him to be a little whatever he is. Kamala Harris them got to go too, if we really talking on the turncoat level, most of the so-called rappers gone. They are gone. Most of the basketball and football team players, half of them, all the shock them.
So be it. What's the problem? What's the problem? So be it. We don't need them. What's the problem? And until we take that, because listen, you could go back to Africa too. Fine. There's turncoats in Africa too. you're going to have to deal with them at some point anyway. Might as well get your work in now. Get your practice in now. We got to get rid of this kind of mindset where anyone could come along and pay you, because the reality of it is you can't pay just any old buddy from these other people groups. You cannot just do that. If that was the case, then we would have been able to pay people to be turncoats. You cannot just do it. You know? But we want everyone to just do whatever they do, and somehow we don't get out of this situation. That's just not how that go work.
Well, that's the thing. The thing is this: we're talking about apples and oranges. We're talking about, if we're in America, right? Like there's different nations. If you're in a white nation, you're not getting out of it. And a lot of us, for some reason, we are in a consciousness circle or bubble where we're just like, oh, there's a way to get out of this one. There's not a way to get out of this one. The only way to get out of the American situation, is to get out of America. But because that's off the table for some reason, right? You're not getting out of it. And until we because it's like you said, it's like what Obama was just saying. If you were going to kill off coons, there's a lot of damn coons you'd have to kill. Now, if there's so many coons you're going to have to kill, how many do you think you can get away with?
Here's the thing. I don't want to belabor the point, but here's the thing. The thing is this. Once you start making some motherfuckers an example, right? Because that's what they did us in the South, right? When they lynched the businessmen from the neighborhood, that scared everyone else from doing business, right? Once you start taking care of some people, and again, I'm saying too much on the internet, but once you start taking care of some of these turncoats and coons, right? People will start to fall in line. You'll get less and less of these types of people. But because we do nothing to them, and because we just let them be, these people go on to inspire the other people. There's this movie out right now, and I know only saw it because it's so ridiculous. I mean, not the movie, but the tweet about it. A guy saying that he watched this movie, They Cloned Tyrone. That's on Netflix. That's making some noise, right? And the gist of that film is that there's these archetypes in Black society that they clone over and over. The pimp, the thug, the prostitute type thing, and there's others, right? The pastor pimp type, right? Every generation, there's these new faces. Same title, same job title, but a new face. They're just clones of someone who was here 100 years ago, right? If you start making the example, you will stop the cloning process. You will cut down that bullshit that's going on. And by the way, I agree with Oni in that, and this was the point I was making the last Shoot the Breeze I was on with you guys, that in America, because of the power dynamic here, these folks could just sabotage anything you're trying to do. Talking like Bakari, I'm talking about, I ain't cut from that. It don't matter what cloth you cut from. These guys have the power here on this soil to sabotage and fuck up anything you're trying to do. I get that. So I get Oni's point. But still, when we all go back to Africa, whoever's going to go, right? You're going to have the sellout type there too, because you never took care of it ever before. There comes a point we got to put our foot down and start dealing with these folks. Where these folks know, yo, I cannot go back around my so-called people again.
Well, I would say this. I think this might be a good topic to explore, in a longer sense. But what I'll say is this. There is this video, there's this tweet circulating about this dude in Niger after the revolution happens, right? After the coup happens. And he's the finance minister of Niger. So they're telling him, look, you got 48 hours to tell us why there's so many millions missing from the budget. Otherwise, you're dead. And so what he's doing is he's crying, right? Because he can't account for the last 48 hours, right? Or for where the money's at. And what I'm saying is that they are dealing with it in Africa. A lot of things that we complain about in the West, like, oh man, you see this Chinese guy did so and so forth, or you see this white guy did so and so forth in Africa. The people in government in Africa are dealing with the Chinese person. They're dealing with the white person, but we don't play that part, right? The point is that people in people in Africa are dealing with situations. There's more of that vigilante justice. There's more of that rampant kind of violence, if you will. There's more of that. There's more of that laws by black people for black people by black people. There's more of that. You could try that in America. You can try that in America, but the reality is this: you'll be throwing your life away. And so I think that it would be nice to have this in a longer discussion, in a longer format, because I would tend to agree with what you're saying. I'm just saying that if we're being honest, right, the practicality of it is that you just throw your life away when you can do what we're talking about in Africa. Because like I told you guys, I'll say this: my son was jumping over something, just playing around doing foolish stuff. So I gave him a little hand, whatever. And this lady told me, "Hey man," like the whole thing just stopped and looked at me to see if I would do it again, right? And this lady said, "Hey, don't do that. We don't hit kids here." You get what I'm saying? As to say, if I were to do it again, if I were to put my hands on my kid, they would have jumped in and put their hands on me, and because I would have been the quote unquote coon in that situation. My point being that people are not afraid in Africa to put hands on somebody acting up because the law protects them there. The law doesn't protect you here to put hands on somebody. So you can, be an assassin, if you will, right? You can do that, but unless you're really, really good, you're throwing your life away. That's all I'm saying. But we should talk about this another time.
Yeah, sure. You're sure. I think it's a worthwhile conversation. I think we have to start thinking along those lines of you have to punish people, man. Yeah, and this idea of who gets to decide. Well, it's the community that decides. If you're doing harm to the community, particularly the psyche of the community, because this stuff that Candace was talking about, that's real damaging to our children, man. You're supposed to get dealt with. Let's welcome in Bakari this week before we move on to the next topic. Bakari, how are you?
What's going on, man? How y'all doing on the panel in the chat?
Good.
I was coming on to let you know I'm gonna be listening in and out. I'm getting ready to go watch these fights, but then I heard you say it don't make a difference what I say. I ain't saying about being cut from that cloth. Explain what you're talking about. So I explain what I mean when I say that.
Yeah.
Because I've been in and out.
The concept of I talked about this on Twitter. I think it was earlier last week or something like that too. The concept of what we talked about 2 weeks ago, where the conversation we were having was along the lines of, you can take your community and do things, which I don't disagree with, but I am aware that they can sabotage your shit. I posted several examples this week on Twitter too, of these folks sabotaging your shit. And I remember you saying, well, you cut from a different cloth. And my thing is, doesn't matter what cloth anyone is cut from. If people have the power and you're on the same soil with the more powerful person, they're going to be able to exercise their power over you. That's what I was saying.
Okay, agreed. I agree with that. So when I say I'm not cut from a certain cloth, let me tell you what I mean. Like, you'll never hear me use the term white supremacy. I don't even like that term. That comes from Neely Fuller Jr. That's who started. I don't use the term white supremacy because what I say have definition. I know they have power, and I know they can come in and try and sabotage. I'm not from the cloth. I'm going to quit, bow down to them. That's what I mean when I say I'm not cut from the cloth. That's what I mean by that. But I'm going to quit and I'm going to just yield to their power because I believe in black power. And like Kwame Ture said, black power don't mean that we have power right now. Black power is a term that was coined because that is something that we want to create And I believe our power on this soil, because we are behind enemy lines and somebody else is in control and they created a system this way. I believe our power.
Bakari fell off, I guess, internet issues. Okay,
That's why I talked about what Jaylen Brown is talking about when he said, when he signed the largest NBA contract in history. On his interview, the first interview he did since doing that, what he said is he gonna use his wealth, starting in Boston where he's living and playing. He's gonna use his wealth to create Black Wall Streets and hope the rest of the country can follow, and we can have good Black neighborhoods where we have economics, where we create our own economics throughout the whole country. So when I say I'm not cut from the cloth, that's what I mean, in about me just complaining about what white people doing to me or what somebody else is doing to me. I'm cut from the cloth is I want to get up and get something done instead of complaining, because complaining don't change nothing. So that's what I mean when I say I'm not cut from that cloth. I understand that situation.
Yeah, no, I understand. I understood what you meant. Here's the thing I'm very particular about. I'm particular about nuance. So some people will hear that and be like, yeah, I'm not cut from that and blah, but not understand the situation. I know Bakari understands the situation that we're in, but some wouldn't understand it. Like Ms. Vita in the chat is saying right now, Candace is not a part of our community. You know, amongst us here, we understand that Candace is not a part of our community, but a lot of Black folks won't understand that. And the damage that she will do through her prayer, you know, of course, a lot of her audience is white, but there'll be Black folks who take that shit up and follow it. You know how I know? When I played the video from Candace Owens a couple months ago when they killed our brother on the trains here in New York, there was a gang of Black folks under that comment section praising Candace Owens, right? When we look at Pan-Africanism Strikes, but he sounds like male Candace Owens. I'm sure he's inspired by Candace Owens. You know, so we got to be very careful about, you know, how we present these things and and be, you know, present it, but also be realistic to the situation. So this is why I go back and I like when Oni is talking about, yeah, in America, you're in a fucked position. That's not to say you mustn't try. Like Buana would say, throw the stone. Sure. But understand that they can come in and sabotage your shit. Right? Anyway, I'm kind of going off topic here.
But you are right. You are right. And it only truly take one of us to sell out. And it'll look like all of us. Because when you said about how you see those Black people in the comments caping for Candy Owens, then you mentioned Pan-Africanism Strikes Back. All you got to do is read that chat. In his chat, it's like 95% Black. It'd be a couple of white people in there, right? And that's what we like. But that's why I appreciate this channel, and appreciate the people on the panel, because like me, we refuse to sell out by beating up Black people. So my YouTube channel can grow, so I can get money from those other people. And on social media, that's like the purpose of it. But that's why I appreciate channels like this. When I say I don't watch a lot of social media, I mean that. I watch the people who who I deal with, who panel I'm on, who come to my channel. But for the most part, when you go watch these bigger channels, everything is just complain, the white man doing this, the white man doing that. But then whenever I mention, well, we can do this, so then they get into where white supremacy won't let you. And we sound like little kids talking about what somebody won't let you do. It's going to be hard, but shit, our life in this country, in this world has been hard. So if we ain't willing to fight and we ain't willing to take chances to make our situation better, it won't get better. We're gonna have to do it. I
wanted to speak to Brother Bakari for a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
I wish that Jalen Brown had some older brothers around him before he made that statement. Because yes, I congratulate the man
I
for
agree.
I congratulate him for signing that deal. I think that it's phenomenal. But you don't have to expose your whole plans to the world. You keep that. I mean, especially when you know you have people who going to actively work to try to ensure that them plans don't come to fruition. Go into the communities of Boston where I think the net worth for black people is $8. Go into Boston and do what you need to do. You know what I mean? Let your actions show. You don't gotta make no pronouncement about it. You don't. The billionaire Chinese person in America right now, you don't even know what his name is. People don't know one of the wealthiest people in Boston is Bob Arum. You know what I mean? Most people don't even they looking at Dante Wilder when Bob Arum them signing all them dudes checks, and he is shy away from the public limelight. I think that the older brothers say, man, listen, man, show me what your plans are. We'll support it. We'll get behind you. You don't need to make no pronouncements. You play basketball. You're a basketball player. Let people see you as that. They don't need to know how you moving around Boston strategically. You know what I mean? When they wake up one day and say, well, wait a minute, this guy has business here, here. He has a piece of this. He has a piece. How did he get all of that? You know what I mean? Don't tell the people who don't like your plans. What do you think they're gonna do? I mean, they could do it anyways, but I would say that he shouldn't have made them kind of statements publicly. That's what I would tell him.
Hey, can I respond to that right quick?
Yes,
I agree and I disagree. And let me tell you why I do agree. I agree because you're right. Don't tell them your plans, they know what you're doing. I use this guy named Aubrey Miller, who went undrafted into the NFL. He's going to be a rookie. He went to Jackson State, and as he was talking, everybody knew he was going to the NFL. Every interview, he kept talking about them a projected third round pick, which is guaranteed. You're going to get you a minimum guarantee of $1 million, right? But every interview he did, he talked about how black people, if we stick together, one of the first things he want to do is do work in the black community. That's one of the first. And he went from a third round pick to being undrafted. Now they know he good enough to be on the team, so they already signed him. But he from a possible $1 million signing bonus to 180.
Dang, I messed up. But I'm gonna probably try to pick, get off of what Bakari was saying. I think Bakari was leading to you don't expose your hand before you get a good hand.
What these people are doing.
I think this brother actually did.
And he athletes that do that now. We supporting them in the that could be that people come out and say it. I'm not saying it is because I do agree. I think some stuff should be kept quiet till you start building. You got some foundation in Boston, and then you from.
Okay.
Bakari is kind of in and out.
Can y'all hear me?
We can hear you now, Bakari.
Can y'all hear me?
Say the last part. Yeah. Say the last part, and then we'll go back to
technical difficulties again.
Yeah. You're in and out. Okay.
Can you hear us? I don't think you're here. All right. So I see what Bwana's saying, but what I'm gonna say is that it looks like he exposed his plan after he already got the money, after he already secured the bag. And another thing is I can see there's big value in telling and actually that kind of imagery, because a lot of people, like I saw the video after I saw that Bakari spoke on it. I saw that video and a lot of people under it were like, this is my new favorite basketball player, because that's something that black people, particularly in America, want to see, which is somebody who says, you know what, my mind is toward my people, which is something we do not see enough. So there's actually a lot more value in the black person with the biggest the biggest paycheck or whatever, that person saying, I want to give back to my community. That's even more valuable than than him actually doing the work. You know, it's not more valuable per se, but it's pretty valuable in terms of what it means for other Black people. Now, if he can pull it off, that's good. But you know, if he pulls it off on the side in secret and quiet, that's not as good as if he pulls it off while being upfront and boisterous about it, because then it really opens the door for, you know, let's say a LeBron James saying, you know what, I want to give to my people and I'll be vocal about it. You know, like for us to, because as much as we like the point earlier about, you know, coming after the traitors, if you will, right? One of the things that we also lack in this country are people who are vocal about being helpful to Black folk. Because one thing I just noticed, in fact, I was looking at the tweet that Coco put out, but also somebody showed me a tweet I put out earlier, and it had like 100-something views, right? After a couple of hours, and views are really easy to come in from on Twitter. But the reason why it has views, and the reason why, if you were to pull up my Twitter on just like the internet, I'm blocked. I'm blacklisted. You know, like blacklisted, right? And what that means is that, you know, you can't find me in search optimization. You can't do nothing, so on and so forth, because Black people, because essentially white folk are actively working against people having a positive message. And that's something that we're not really, you know, we don't really speak about. But I did catch some white folk talking about, oh yeah, you know, you can get blacklisted by this, by that, by so on and so forth, right? And how to get out of it. They were telling us about that. But what I'm saying is that this guy is not blacklisted. He already got the check. I think the example Bakari was about to say was about the guy who didn't get the check yet, and he spoke before he got the check. This guy got the check. After he got the check, he said, look, this is what I'm going to do with this check because I got it already. And that right there, that I think that strategically, that was brilliant on his part. If he can now actually do it without being sabotaged, or without, you know, just survive it, if you will, then that's actually another big thing for us as a people, you know? So for him to announce it and then do it, and if he's successful, that's great. Obviously, we suspect that, I mean, some of us probably suspect that he won't be successful, which is not something that you should really, that's not an optimistic way of life, but it makes a little sense. Still, I would say, you know, what he did, I think it was actually a good thing, all things considered.
But only if you, yeah, I'll let her rock. I'll let her go.
Quickly, and then we'll move on to the next topic.
Yeah, but if Brother Bakari say, if you behind enemy lines, you should act like it. Yeah, you should act like a man who trying to accomplish freedom if you behind enemy lines. But if you going out to the whole public, the whole Nazi Germany as a Jew, telling the Nazis, hey, this is what I'm going to do in my Jewish community. And I mean, what do you think they're gonna do? I mean, I understand as a symbol to the other Jews, to the other disenfranchised people, it's a positive message. But this is the problem I have sometimes, because even though we have to check, that don't mean he can't be still ruined. Because these people could do all kind of things for taxations and all manner of things. All manner of things. Despite the fact that he have money in the bank, that could always be taken away. I'm just saying that if you behind enemy lines, you should act like you behind enemy lines until you achieve the level of freedom that you wish. And that's gonna come back by actually doing actual real work.
That's the thing, though. If you feel like you're behind enemy lines, then get out. That's the big contradiction. If you feel like you are behind enemy lines, then everything else goes out the window. Everything else goes out the window. That's the problem with us as a people. It's like that's why me personally, I kind of disconnected from the quote unquote conscious movement, because there's that cognitive dissonance. You know, oh, I'm behind enemy lines. If you're behind enemy lines, what are you doing there? Like, why are you behind enemy lines? It don't make any sense. Like who told you to go behind? like you know, like if you are at war, like we being real. Like all right, let's be real. You're England and I'm Germany, right? Or I'm an English soldier, and I call you and I say, look, I'm in Berlin right now, right? The thing you gotta ask me is, what the fuck are you doing in Berlin? Like unless we sent you to Berlin, right? What are you doing in Berlin? So the trouble is that when we talk about, you know, military war and all that kind of stuff, this is why I think I wrote in my book, I said, you can't say you're at war and you don't got no general. You don't got no captain. You don't got no orders from nobody. Like, nobody's telling you, like, if you're at war, you're supposed to be reporting for duty to the general somewhere. But you don't have that. So it's just like, yeah, I mean, if this brother, like even when you were saying, hey, this brother should be counseled by some other brothers, some brother with some old head should tell him, hey, this is what you should do and this is what you should do. Like, what old head is doing anything is making Black Wall Street? What old head know how to manage millions of dollars? And if they are there, it's like they're not consciously, oh, we're at war with these crackers. Because it's like, if you're being for real, if you are at war with these crackers, right? If that's what it is, then go and regroup somewhere. It's just confusing people. If you're confusing people.
Good point. For time's sake, I do have to move on, though. I thank Bakari for coming through. Bakari, you could give us some updates in the chat with the fight, if you don't mind. Shout out to KW7 for the super chat. I appreciate you. He says, there's no need to be a Mansa Musa. We saw what happened to the Mali Empire. Yeah, that's pretty much my thinking. Move in some silence. But there, afterwards you could celebrate it or whatever, but sometimes you just got to move in silence, in my opinion. Matron is here saying greetings to everyone. Luro is here saying peace, loved ones. I appreciate you guys for coming through. Real Black Gentleman was here earlier. Carl Hezekiah was out there as well. And I think I shouted out Daily Affirmations by Pauline earlier as well. That was a good conversation. Again, we could always bring these conversations back, so keep them in mind with different examples. Shooter Breeze topic number 2, though, is going to be, how do we deal with a white boy telling the truth while a bunch of blacks lie? That's interesting. How do we deal with a white boy telling the truth while a bunch of blacks lie? So this takes us to a link on YouTube. I've been told several times to jump around in this, so I'm going to play the first part and then I'll stop it and jump to the next part.
Oh my gosh. Let's go to the URL. All right, yeah. Checks out. But notice that this article has no citations, none whatsoever. So what the heck does this have to do with slavery? Turns out very little whatsoever. So this quote is really misleading. Let's move on.
Here's the second thing you need to know. White people were the first to formally put an end to slavery.
Oh, there we go. Boom. Bigotry. Right there. Yeah. Yay. So notice, starts off with, but slavery was in other places. Woo! And then goes straight to a myth. Yep. Myth number 10 is literally the myth that they're saying right now. And let's just listen to what I have to say here, because it's a lot more concise.
First of all, slavery is still an ongoing issue. Many countries throughout the world have clear slavery, and not just coerced labor like Chinese factory workers. I mean, chattel slavery still exists.
We weren't allowed to be reporting on slavery. It's a practice the government tries to hide from outsiders. But as we would find, slavery is everywhere in Mauritania, if you know where to look.
It is illegal worldwide, but practiced anyways in a number of countries, so slavery has not ended. Furthermore, abolishment of slavery was not an invention of white people. The Qin dynasty were the first recorded abolitionists. They are the reason why we call that country China.
China. China. China. China. China. China. China. China. China. China. China. China. China. China. China now.
Was an abolitionist. Slavery fluctuated throughout world history. The idea that slavery is inherently wrong does not originate in Europe, nor is it particularly unique there. Abolition was also motivated by slave revolts. Slaves were not just docile servants but often actively opposed their own enslavement. Slave revolts happened throughout the modern period, one of which culminated in the liberation of Haiti, long before most European countries abolished slavery. Even when they were forced into the most wretched conditions possible aboard ship on the Middle Passage, there were around 250 shipboard slave revolts. It was such a problem that slave ships often had barricades to defend themselves against such revolting side to claiming that whites freed the slaves. For how wonderful it is that the captors freed the captives. How nice of them to just decide on their own volition to stop oppressing people. This is a particularly pernicious myth because it makes slaves objects rather than actors in their own right, as well as completely forgetting the Western powers were particularly egregious when it came to the abolition of slavery. All of these myths need to be stopped.
My views have not changed whatsoever.
In 1833, Britain was the first country in the history of the world to pass a Slavery Abolition Act.
First country in the history of the world. And you know how they reference it? With our very next reference. Just the Encyclopedia Britannica. A 19th century abolition. Let's not talk about all the stuff that happened before it. Let's not talk about Lithuania. Let's not talk about frickin' Russia. And remember, they said white people. They didn't say Europeans. They said white people.
Quickly followed by France, who in 1848 abolished slavery.
Quickly followed by France, who, notice that there's kind of skipping over something with France here. The fact that France had actually abolished slavery during the really forgetting. Mitanaka says, Haiti. 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 What? Somebody said something about an island. I don't know. We were talking about Britain, weren't we? Not Haiti. It's kind of awkward to talk about how benevolent the UK was, being the so-called first. When a historian hears a superlative like the word first, we start to shake. It says it in their linked source. This is the source they link right here. That's the link. And it says right here, for most enslaved people in British North America, however, the act resulted only in partial liberation, as it only emancipated children under the age of 6 for 4 to 6 years as apprentices.
They were quickly followed by France, who in 1848 abolished
Haiti.
slavery in her many colonies. Then, of course, came the 13th Amendment in the United States Constitution.
Then, of course, forgotten Haiti, forgotten Mexico, forgotten most of South America.
After centuries of human slavery, white men led the world in putting an end to the abhorrent,
not white men, Europeans, just God,
practice. That includes the 300,000 Union soldiers, overwhelmingly white.
Overwhelmingly white. There we go. I knew she was gonna say that. Overwhelmingly white. Let's see what this is linking to. Union dead, Union losses, blah, blah, blah. Oh, nothing about race. Let's see here. White. Nope. How about black? How about Negro? How about colored? How about just the word race? They made up at the very least, 10% of the Union Army, and they were only allowed to start serving in 1863. Think about that. At the bare minimum, they made up 10% of all of those who served, and they were only allowed to serve for like half the war. Think about that. And she's saying bullshit, absolute bullshit.
All right, so that prompt actually, that was like an 11-minute part of the video. I was told to jump to another section of video, which is a 10-minute section. I can't do that. But I think we get the gist of it, right? The white boy is pretty much looking at the prompt that we looked at before, and he's speaking up and I guess debunking things that Candace Owens had said. So I guess the prompt is trying to say, how do we reconcile the white boy, I guess you could say, speaking true as this black woman, Candace Owens, isn't? Only what say you to that?
I mean, yeah, this is exactly the thing I said we should have done. This white boy beat us to the punch. But yeah, I mean, ain't nothing to it, you know. I don't really see, like, I mean, I feel like we went over this topic. I feel like the white boy kind of just had his say, and it was all right. No, I got no comments after that. We feel like we already just went through this topic, and it just seemed like he was just being saying what we said already,
But before you go, real quick, I'll just like to say that I'll just like to ask you, I guess, kind of like what Lero's saying. It seems like a lot of black folks get amped up when white, Tim Wise, these kind of people, when they start speaking some truths about, what happened during the Ma'afa and stuff like that. It seems like we get real hyped about that. And so the question I'm going to ask is, why do you think we care, not you or me or Juana or anyone in the chat, but in general, why do you think when a white guy, today, still in 2023, when a white person says some basic shit that other black people have been teaching for decades?
Oh, so yeah, that's why I was saying I wasn't impressed. That's why I was kind of like, let me just skip over this. But because I'm like, I don't get it. Because I feel like Buana just gave us the same lesson. I don't know. But you said, why do black people? Like I said, because black people are not at war, and that's why I know you were at the brother Brandon for that. Oh, by the way, yeah, your audio is your internet is kind of choppy right now, but I know you were the brother you're at Brandon for that, but Brandon's kind of like holding a mirror up to people too. I mean, I know he might say some extreme stuff too, but he's kind of holding a mirror because a lot of our people are like, oh, I don't like white folk. And then it's like, this white man, he just said something good. So he's, it's like, what are you talking about? Like if you're at war with these people, then why are you listening to them? Because, I don't want to go on the point we were talking about before with Buana, because I'll tell you, I'm about to write this book. I'm going to have a chapter on strategy. And I said, it's like choice, you have a choice, be strategic. And I'm going to summarize it with, Sun Tzu's quote, which is, all warfare is based off of deception, right? But part of the deception thing is stop listening to your enemies. This white boy comes in and he's talking blah, blah, blah. I kind of tune out, me personally, because I feel like I'm real about it. You know what I mean? But like I said, you got the brother, Pan African Strike Back, where he's like, look, a lot of people is phonies. And I like that he's calling out people on that. Where he's like, look, say what you will. These people don't, like, a lot of people don't dislike white folk. Because if you disliked white folk, if you were at war with white folk, if you did, there's a lot of stuff that you'd be doing that you would not be doing. One of the things is you wouldn't be listening to white folk tell you something that Buana just told you. You'd be like, oh, I don't give a shit. But the thing is, because our people actually do like white folk, actually are looking for white acceptance, are actually looking to integrate with this white boy, are actually looking for breadcrumbs. Because of that, yeah, when a white man is nice to you, you could get caught with that. And you getting caught with that's older than any of us. In fact, I said, I think I put in my chapter in my book, I put down a quote from I'm supposed to read this book, Martin Delaney's book, Immigration or Immigration or this, blah, 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 right? In that book, he tells you, hey, look, when he was a youngin', he had black folk talking about, look, actually, we can't do shit here. We got to go to Canada. Now, why Canada? I don't know. But he said, we got to go to Canada. We can't do shit here. And then some white folk told him, no, stay. Right? We going to look out for you. The liberals said, we're going to look out for you. And then Martin Delaney's telling you 20 years later, the liberals ain't do shit for them. And now 200 years later, we still going with the liberals. And we still getting soaked up by them. We still getting tricked by them. And it's the same shit. But it's like, it didn't start in this generation. Because when I'm talking about Martin Delaney, we talking about 150. We talking about people during the Civil War. In fact, Martin Delaney was the first black major in the Civil War. So we're talking about at the Civil War. Somebody who was in the Civil War was saying, you know what, these liberals was fooling us. And 150 years later, again, I'm a foreigner, right? But basically, our ancestors, you could say the black folk here, their mothers was tricked, their grandmothers was tricked, and not just mothers, their mothers and fathers were tricked, their grandmothers and fathers were tricked, their great grandmothers and fathers were tricked, the great. It's a generational thing of I'm gonna listen to these white boys, and it's like you can't and so me as a Caribbean, if you will, right? I gotta just say, okay, this is a different country. But I already moved. My family's migrants already, so I could go. I understand if you're here and you feel like you can't go. I understand that. Me, I don't have that kind of obligation. So I'm like, okay, I'm out.
I appreciate that. Only let me just quickly shout out Brother Bakari for the super chat. Says great topic. I'll be in and out of chat. Going to watch the fight, Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. Yeah, by all means, Bakari, hit us with some blow-by-blow updates, I guess. Also, thank you to Ms. Vita for the super sticker as well. Much appreciated. All these donations will be going right back to the show and the network. So I appreciate that from you guys. KW Don 7 earlier also hit us with the super chat, so I appreciate it. Ms. Vita said, we need their validation. That's her answer to the prompt. And I think that's the sad thing. I think that's the sad truth of it. And what Oni said at the end there is a very important point too. If you're in America, generations upon generations, I could see it being hard for you to leave. Bahamian folks who've been there generations and generations since we got there, it's going to be hard for them to leave too. So I get that point. But with that said, Buana, what's your thoughts on this need to kind of, hold dearly when a white person says some basic shit that we're supposed to all know by now because our own scholars said it before. Well, what are your thoughts on that?
It's Koku, I believe it's a conditioned response. I think that black folks, we've been whammied into believing and thinking that, as Brother Bakari usually say, the white man ice is cooler. So if he makes some ice and I make some ice, of course his ice is better. It's like that's just a conditioned response to subjugated and colonized people. That's how they view the world, through the eyes of their masses, unfortunately. And you have to really work hard to break out of that philosophy and belief and thinking. And if sometimes when you're in a container, it's very difficult to see outside of it. But if you have the opportunity ever to have the realization, as only saying, to see outside of that box or live outside of that box, you won't say to yourself, oh, hey, the world don't really have the white person at the center of it. You know what I mean? Because, other people doing the exact same things. And some of them even doing certain things better, much better than how they doing it and practice it in this side of the world. And I think that because our experience is limited to the containers that we've been born into, and many of us have not ventured outside of that container, that becomes our reality. And the propaganda, that campaign that's going on within the container is like, you only could do anything. All is great. unless it comes from us. You know, that's the campaign that they wage, the marketing campaign that they wage on the minds of us on a daily basis. And I can end with this, and Oni could correct me if I'm wrong. There was this guy, he was a professor, a Jewish professor, his name was Martin Bernard. He wrote a book called Black Athena, I think in the 90s. And in Black Athena, he talked about how Egypt was primarily a sub-Saharan civilization. Now, press and everybody, the whole academic community gathered around and was like, oh, this must be some great insight that this man could be coming up with these kinds of ideas. I mean, this is wonderful. Where would he have gotten these things from? Well, if you read the notes, the sub-notes of the book itself, he quoting extensively Dr. Benham, extensively Shakad Diop, extensively, no name mention of these guys when media attention was surrounding Martin Bernard. But even though our historians was talking about these things in the 80s and the 70s, it's like he's become the next big thing. It's because our people, many of our people, unfortunately, at that point and at this point as well, we don't take the time that we need to in investigating ourselves and the things that we would have created and actually actively would have done and left notes, left books. You know, unfortunately right now in the community, we're in the biggest readers in the world. So it's like when people come before you and they seem like the greatest, thing that you could ever possibly perceive, somebody who have an extensive memory or probably who would have done the work say, wait a minute. Oh, no, brother. He ain't original. He is just regurgitating what somebody else did 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Here's the books. I don't want to read that shit. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think that we have to do some of the work as well. And we can't just leave the onus on someone else to give us what we feel to legitimize us. We have to do the active work itself because many of the work, the foundational ground has been laid already all over the Black world. But for us actively researching and trying to find, where I could find myself, where I could discover these things. I think that we really need to do the grunt work, and many of our people ain't at that point as yet. I think we'll get there, but I don't think that we're there yet. I don't think that the interest is there yet. And the modern media, modern Western media, they dazzle you with many, many different things to distract you away from what's true. You know what I mean? And what will actually buttress you and take you to the next level. So they'll entertain you until you die. Because, the wizard never want to reveal his hand. They never want to show you what's actively going on behind the curtain. They just want to make you believe that the whole world is Disneyland and we created it. Not understanding there's a bunch of slaves actively behind the curtain actually getting this thing done. So I think that we need to actively do the groundwork and try to seek out and search information that is to the benefit of ourselves. But I'll stop there.
I appreciate that, Buana. Let's welcome in our boy, Real Black Gentleman, RBG. How are you this week?
I'm straight.
Good. Go ahead.
I mean, how you deal with it? I mean, you just ignore it. I mean, this is my thing. It's like, look, unless these people, I mean, like the whole point about acknowledging history is the understanding what it was all about. It's all about wealth. I mean, that's why they snatch Black folks out here. You know what I'm saying? They bring them out here so that they can live easier, so they can get their coin and trade amongst themselves. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? It was just a medium for them to get their coin and their dollar. You know what I'm saying? So they could swap. You know what I'm saying? Swap in their market. So, you know what I'm saying? What they can do is be more Robin Hoodish, you know what I'm saying? They know who stole us, then go ahead, do what you do. Robin Hood and distribute that shit, the wealth, you know what I'm saying? In a meaningful, transferable manner, you know what I'm saying? So that the Black folks won't have to give it back. I mean, you know what I'm saying? But I it's easy, you know what I'm saying, for these white people to come around here and all of a sudden, you know what I'm saying? 20 years ago, these white people wouldn't be so comfortable actually trying to be so refutative towards what, I mean, objectively, what the lady was saying had some truth, even though, I mean, that it comes flat, but you know what I'm saying? Him trying to refute that doesn't really do anything to really that, tell me something I don't know. You You know what I'm saying? That'd be my whole attitude. Be like, you know what I'm saying? Tell me something I don't know. Don't be like, Captain Obvious with like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Look, I mean, that's my whole point. I mean, you don't want to belabor the point. You take it with a grain of salt. I mean, I just mute to it. You know what I'm saying? I just like don't become receptive to the idea that it's something profound or anything really even worth bothering. And you're gonna talk, you know what I'm saying? Ain't gonna stop me, you know what I'm saying? All I gotta do is not listen to it. And just if someone comes to me on that level where it's like, hey, white boy saying this, you know what I'm saying? I just downplay like, yo, like, such and such already did that. Don't give that, you know what I'm saying? Don't give that more credit. That's all I got to say. Yep.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate you coming through, Real Black Gentleman, for real. Afro Native World, thank you for the super chat. He says African freedom fighters, Maroons, Palanqueros, Cimarrones, Quilombolos. I'm sure I butchered that. Sorry. Were the first abolitionists from the first African captives in the Dominican Republic, 1503. They exercised liberation, Kujikala, and freed themselves. I appreciate that, even though I might have butchered some words. I appreciate that super chat. I'm going to give Trigger Happy the last word if no one else has anything to add on the panel. Okay, I'll give Trigger Happy the last word here before we go to the next topic. He says, all of the white peoples who want to do good just have a king of the black syndrome. They want to be worshipped, and black people eat it up. I feel you on that one, sincerely. Did anyone have any last words on the panel, or we good to move on? All right. Shoot the Breeze, topic number 3 tonight, is a little bit lengthy, but we'll get through it. The importance and richness of African languages. Language doesn't just serve the purpose of trade, but serve the purpose of orientation and consciousness. Notice how one word has an entire subtext beneath it. This came with a link to Twitter. Let me share my screen. My computer's acting up. That's why I'm not playing the videos during the conversation. You guys should be able to see this, I assume. Yeah. On Twitter, there's this tweet from Fanti Space that says how we got the word conconsa. I'm assuming conconsa. This comes with a video, 2-minute, 20-second video. I'll play it twice to make sure everyone gets the full context of the video.
Como jo bininti wo ya wo ya mkakakira papa bi ena onye namba oho na ne baba ma ru okase wa fa aware nti ne papa onka jayire man na ne papa da na sipa aka tie na yaade anka yan kwase ni na abasire de pelo wari asme yimiam aso man kwa yimiam timedo ase no bisa no bande na anya bi awofra ni so papa minya bi na mo mahu bi minya ba ni bi na mo mahu bi no papa na chairman no papa kire no na otre no papa no otwa na mo wo ho okro ba no yaki okosei na bia woguru wasra no no anu mu no na papa bi nso wo ho a what fell con papa wo fell con na no sina do ye de de pele iya ade pebi no no nam wase onam wase gutwo na ntin de ma ba ya ade ne ori ye yiye e ma okura papa abente ni papa ho okaka ade de papa oyi nyeri jare yira ma wo be obe ye obe gengi oti de mi towns of by the towns of Rai, on many young saying Hoya, intimate portal, men go, name inside the soup. No catching. And about child concomias or sign called balance in Papa. This is the man or the chip up on the soup. Incident go fair being hard and capital. So, although you are what is on cold, so on seal. Now, once I walk away in the one corner, yet you who remember.
Okay, I seem to stop abruptly. Let me see if there's another part to it. Okay, there's another part. I'll play the next part now.
About no home, no papa, or in any Cassigasa, no Yanita. Now, Sana Sassino, or he now took what would do with it, or better, about Toby and Minnesota, Obokum. I went to see Mokako Hinam and there. Now, went to Mukata, Cocra Hinti, Okobo Hinam and the other said Oroco, Papa Conco, I don't die Yemeni. It's my magnificent client and Mukumumpo. The views I am remembering Mumbo and there. What a flare of him, Coca, Papa Conco Momra. Then I examine okay, Oka flare or in the bay. Or by you know, but no, we wish not same better on Casa. Concon, you won't ever was a me. We wish no Casa. None the Catan, their own Casa done with whom what I year. Into the Bokum, or Sunday Abu the Wood Dada. The cadet. One Casa. No, here, none fair or tram or tram in there. One fair, a bra from the Wombra. And a bra from the bay. What about Uncle Yaman? Now, bra from the Avalanche, what no cray, Okokunu. No Korean, no ban and area. Mako play, so Mel Kunida, won't you turn in saddle? Then saddle, Mukuka. Now, one for being mobile him. No one to keep you what from I offend I crum a mobile who is a concordance and Oberhorn. Hallelujah. And what to try what yet is some more Canada or here Canada. What about Indeed, all tar and now there are some nice woman coffee. I won't what's a concordance in the word carbon. Concordance and the word carbon. Concordance and the word carbon. Every day a cassette of concordance. No one cassette. Joy, so what can I cut a concordance? One can ye set up concordance. Master Minnie would in the hall. Eh, Mammy, as you know, what can I could do here? No, okay, some papa, about no home, maybe no papa, or in any Cassigasa, no Yanita.
So I think everyone was able to see that it's a little longer, so I'm not gonna play it. Hold on. That's an interesting story. That's an interesting story because, and I think it was Trigger who posted this on the Discord. By the way, join the Discord. The link is in the description, and you can post your topics too. That could be aired on Shoot the Breeze. I don't know if you guys noticed. Like I don't know if Juana knows this, but the Grenadians have a term that I realize must be derived from this. It's kind of a new thing to me. They have a term called a kun. So they'll watch you and they'll say this man is a big fucking kun, right? And basically that word involves, the way they use it, it kind of involves like being a gossip. Now that I watched this video, I kind of understand it. I think that's pretty interesting. So Shoot the Breeze topic number 3 is the importance and richness of African languages. Language doesn't just serve the purpose of trade, but serves the purpose of orientation and consciousness. Notice how one word has an entire, subtext to it, or subtext beneath it. Real Black Gentleman, what did you get from those two videos?
Well, I missed the first one, right? But I kind of caught the end of the second one. So I'm not too sure about the context. That's the problem. I mean, I wasn't really paying attention. I tried to turn away, and then I came back, and I'm like, oh shoot, I missed half of what was going on.
Okay.
I won't say anything because I don't have any context to really say. I'm just going to listen to what everyone else had to say.
All right, let me go to Buana.
I wish I did. That's the thing.
Let's go to Buana.
No, it was beautiful in him describing how just words, just simple words have so much in-depth meaning, and he I think he's what they call a griot. So I think that he is goes all into the ontology, if that's the right word I'm using, an epistemology. I can't remember the word, but he goes in depth in the understanding of the meaning of that word and where it comes from. To clearly define to his people, to convey, okay, well, we use this particular word and this is the meaning for this word. He's almost like we have a Collins dictionary, he is their own oral dictionary because he references, historically why we use that word. So people have a greater understanding of what their culture is. We have vestiges of some of these different things, but we don't know the where it comes from and the meaning behind these words. Why people say mother sex? You know what I mean? Why Jamaicans say bomba clad? Yeah, it's like who was the first person to come up with that term? Why do they use that term? Where's the difference? I think that is a piece that is missing for us in the Western world. That's some of the things we may have lost, and the fact that he is actively standing up, like almost like a dictionary, oral dictionary, a thesaurus, going and referencing the meaning and the terms of these words. I think it's a beautiful thing to do. I don't know where you get hallelujah in his language, because hallelujah, hallelujah may not be an African term. I don't know. Maybe Miss Vito will go fight me on that one. But I just think that it's beautiful, the fact that he is, really trying to solidify and define all the certain cultural aspects. You even can learn aspects of law in what he was saying when he said that, if you don't do these things, this will be a penalty and punishment. I'm saying, wow. I'm saying, man, you just one slight slip and you dead. And I think that even law and governance in these societies were extreme, but you learn that through his story, just telling a story. There's many takeaways. You learn how the law was structured. If you offend the king in any way, if you can't answer him, there'll be executioners to take care of that situation. Also, what you take away from that is the consequences that Coco was talking about earlier. The consequences of not doing a particular thing. Here are these consequences. We have these executioners over here if you don't fulfill the terms of your role in society. Also, the fact that being a backbiter, being a gossiper, these are things we will shun within the society itself. So there are so many different takeaways, even in him just telling the story itself. I think that there's a beauty in that, but you really have to pay attention. So next time, RBG can pay some attention so he can get some takeaways too. But I'll just leave it there.
RBG watching the fight probably. Oni, how do you feel about that, and how do you respond to the prompt?
Yeah, so you saw what I said about, you have laws in Africa. Like you have laws by black people because peep how they said, look, you lying about somebody else's woman could get you killed.
That's your ass.
You could lie about anybody's woman here in America. This white boy's not gonna kill you over that shit. He might kill you over lying about his woman, but if I go and say, so and so's woman, you know what I mean? That ain't no consequences. And I mean, and you might be like, oh well, we should do the consequences ourselves. Like I said, it's different when the laws are on your side versus when the laws are not. Because when the laws are on your side, you get shit where people can't even talk about your woman. People can't even talk about your woman. That's what he was saying. Because the dude was walking around Con, I guess, was walking around talking about, man, I done slept with your woman. Which is like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it ain't nothing. Like right now, sometimes because that guy keeps coming at me, I come at him sometimes. So this is brother, Xbox, right? He a good brother, right? But he sometimes come after me, I sometimes come after him. But what they're saying is that in Africa, if we had our own black laws in place, and let's say, he come after me or I come after him, right? That's it. For one of us. But we don't want that system. The people here in America, what we do is we let this white boy write all of our laws. And then we like, oh shit sucks. Shit sucks for us. Well, of course it is. Because this white boy's not your friend. In relation to the prompt, this is another thing I was saying about this is how people create deities. Like a lot of what we call African spirituality, a lot of what we call religion is just stories for kids. Stories. Yeah, we don't even know if this Con situation even happened. We just know this guy is telling us a story about why the word like Con's fingers, right? And maybe Con was a real person. We don't know if we don't know if the description of this situation is as it went down, right? We just know he's telling us a story and he's passing it down to the future. He's passing it down from generation to generation. In another civilization or another time period, these people, Con would be the deity of gossip, the nature of gossip, the release of gossip. That's it, right? But these people, this particular group, I guess in Asante land or among the tree, whatever, right? But these people, they just said, okay, no, it's not going to be a date. It's just going to be, we're going to pass this off. But like for now, it's just a historical conversation. For now, it's just a historical relic, retold so that children can learn not to gossip. We don't know any, like we don't and I mean, I guess I don't know if the question is really saying, well, look, language is more than well, sorry, you took it off. Let me see. Language is more than the purpose of trade or whatever. But also consciousness and so on and so forth. And I mean, yeah, sure. Sure. Like way I look at trade, I feel like trade is very core to our experience as human beings, because at the end of the day, we cannot we can't really be independent as human beings, right? And so a lot of our existence revolves around trade. We just don't call it trade. So like for instance, you even trying to get a woman, right? Comes back to that, because even think about what was really done. Like if you look at it, like you can look at it from a perspective of, hey, look, trade is different from orientation is different from consciousness, or you can look at it like everything's a big trade. Everything is about relationships, if you will, right? You can kind of do that. I mean, obviously language has bigger purposes than trade, I think. So I don't know. I don't really know why the question is like that. Why it says language doesn't just serve the purpose of trade. Because like, obviously, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, I mean, I could appreciate the richness, but like I said, we don't even know. We just know that this guy's telling a good story, and it has its roots, and that's fine. But I don't like. I think it's appreciated. That's all I can say.
Thank you for that, Oni, and also thanks for tying it back to other conversation. That's what I like about Shoot the Breeze, when we could tie it back to things. But I will say, like I said at the start, I wish there was a Grenadian on the panel or in the chat. But since I've been in New York, I've been around a lot of different Caribbean peoples, and I look at the things that overlap where I'm from with them and things that don't. And this term, he's saying con, but they call it kun, and I bet you most of them don't even know that it comes from this region of Africa, and that it's a carryover. And I think that's the point of the prompt, is that when you, I guess you could say, re-Africanize yourself in terms of language too, it reorients you to your culture. So I think whereas if you practicing this English shit, like Obadale Campbell wrote about in that one paper, you know, you naming your children these English names that mean all sorts of wild shit, and then you wonder why, why things aren't going the way they're supposed to be going, because you're naming, there's the importance of naming and the importance of language. I think that's what Trigger's trying to get at in this prompt. Real Black Gentleman, you heard what everyone had to say. If you want to add a few words, you can, or I could just move on if there's no other last words.
Well, I mean, if it's indeed true that like it's just a story, I mean, I get it. I mean, I kind of caught the N words, like the difference between the essay and the NSA. Like, you know what I'm saying? The it's like you want to pay attention, because if you gossip, right, and you don't get the whole story, you wind up telling bad information. You running around, I heard something. I gotta tell someone I heard something, but you didn't hear all of it. Yeah, you don't want to be a gossiper. You want to, like, you know what I'm saying? It's just like, there's no reason to jump the gun about things. This is important to teach kids not to be the first person to tell someone things sometimes. I guess, you know what I'm saying? That's my little 2 cents.
So I'm sure Oni would agree. Oni would agree with this. And because I'm remembering my brother Zuli when he said that stories are very important, sometimes more important than most things. Stories are extremely important. Extremely important. In the Western world believes that somebody can come out of the clouds one day, and make everything, good on earth. And people live their whole lives, create whole cultures around these kinds of philosophies and ideas. And I think that it's good to have our own version of how the story should be, because you're orienting yourself in the world in a particular way and manner. But I'll just leave it there. I'll just be brief.
All right, I was in another tab trying to look up something, but I guess that conversation ended. All right, if there's no last words, we'll go to Shoot Breeze topic number 4. But that was a good little topic there. I like that video. Trigger Happy 262 said he think that word is in Jamaica. Also, I never heard it from Jamaicans. Perhaps it is, but I know for sure I've heard it from Grenadian people. Maybe Sister Raw, who's in the chat now, greetings, Sister Raw. Maybe she's familiar with the word kun kun, being that she is Jamaican and in Jamaica. But like I said, I wish a Grenadian was here to corroborate my story. In the meantime, though, let's go to Shoot the Breeze topic number 4. For time's sake, I'm not going to do a station ID break, but you guys know, check out all the shows. I did hear from Tanzan briefly. She's dealing with some things, so that's why you haven't heard from her in a while, but she should be back. Should reach topic number 4. Capitalism must be appreciated in all its aspects, including tippu tip. This came with a link that's going to take us to YouTube. We'll watch the video, then we'll discuss.
Now, it's always been my opinion that for those black folks out there who are fans of capitalism and who celebrate the so-called glories of capitalism, it's really hypocritical to celebrate capitalism while demonizing the so-called African slave traders who helped build the capitalist economy. That's why I think it's important to recognize the entrepreneurial efforts of a lot of these so-called slave traders in building the modern global economy that the majority of us claim to enjoy. And that's why I want to look deeper and delve into a man named Tippu Tip. Tippu Tip is perhaps the greatest black capitalist of all time. Tippu Tip, whose real name is Hamad bin Muhammad bin Juma bin Rajab El Merjebi, was a Zanzibar real estate investor and governor who built a financial empire based upon funneling war captives to the major labor markets of the Arabian Peninsula and the European settler colonies of the New World. Tippu Tip built his fortune in the mid-1800s by leading military expeditions of up to 4,000 men from the African coast into the interior killing elephants for ivory, and rounding up men, women, and children captives to be sold on the auction blocks of Zanzibar. It is believed that Tippu Tip was born around 1832 in Zanzibar. His mother, Bint Habib bin Bashir, was a Muscat of the ruling class, while his father and paternal grandfather were coastal Swahili who had taken part in the earliest trading expeditions to the interior. His paternal great-grandmother, wife of Raja bin Muhammad bin el-Murjebi, was the daughter of Juma bin Muhammad el-Nabani, a member of the respected Muscat Oman family, and an African woman from the village of Mbwa Maji, a small village south of what would later become the German capital of Dar es Salaam. Throughout his lifetime, he was more commonly known as Tippu Tip, which translates to the gatherer of wealth. According to him, he was given the nickname Tippu Tip after tip tip, the sound that his guns gave off during his expeditions in the Chungu territory. At a relatively young age, Tippu Tip led a group of about 100 men into Central Africa from Zanzibar, seeking captives in ivory. After plundering several large swaths of land, he returned to Zanzibar to consolidate his resources and then went on to build himself a vast business empire and to recruit men for his private army. Afterwards, he would return to mainland Africa to continue his conquest. After the Berlin Conference between 1884 and 1885, Tip claimed the Eastern Congo for himself and the Sultan of Zanzibar, Bargash bin Said el-Bu Saidi. In spite of his position as protector of Zanzibar's interest in Congo, he managed to maintain good relations with Europeans. Professor Godfrey Muriuki, a historian at the University of Nairobi in Kenya, said Tippu Tip established his own kingdom in Eastern Congo and became one of the most notorious among a number of growing black capitalists operating in East Africa. When in August 1886, fighting broke out between the Swahili and the representatives of King Leopold II of Belgium at Stanley Falls, Tip went to the Belgian consul at Zanzibar to assure him of his good intentions. Although he was still a force in Central African politics, he could see that his power in the region was shifting. In early 1887, Stanley, who was in Congo with the secret mission to organize what would become known as the Congo Free State, arrived in Zanzibar and proposed that Tippu Tip be made the governor of Stanley Falls District in the Congo Free State. Both Leopold and Sultan Bargash bin Said agreed, and on February 21, 1887, Hamid bin Muhammad el-Murgebi was accepted. After his tenure as governor, Tippu Tip saw that the growing European influence in Africa was changing the trading dynamic on the continent. His influence in the Congo was also diminishing rapidly with the rise of Belgian colonialism. After carefully considering his options, he returned to Zanzibar in 1880, where he used his amassed fortune to develop 7 valuable clove plantations to manage his servants, who now numbered close to 10,000. After returning to Zanzibar, Tippu Tip retired. He set out to write an account of his life, which is the first example of a literary genre of autobiography in the Swahili language. Dr. Heinrich Brode, who knew him in Zanzibar, transcribed the manuscript into Roman script and translated it into German. It was subsequently translated into English and published in Britain in 1907. Tippu Tip died June 13, 1905 of malaria in his 3-story home in Stonetown, the main town of the island of Zanzibar. His 3-story house still stands, and now it is occasionally occupied by squatters. Tippu Tip is an example of what it means to be a visionary and to be a builder in the modern capitalist society. Without his engagements with European and American traders, without his promotion of these auction markets in Zanzibar, where he was selling captive labor to the international markets, we wouldn't really have the economic structure that we have today. So Tippu Tip should be known as a black capitalist visionary and one of the creators of the modern global economy, one of the founding fathers of modern global capitalism. For his work in that regard, for all of those who are fans of the capitalist system, he should be respected and honored.
Guys, make sure to subscribe to Camgiverse. You know, I was talking to this brother Camgiverse about doing an interview a while ago, and because of different things that have been going on in my own life, I haven't had a chance to do it, but I hope to reconnect with him. So if you're watching, just know that I'm going to get to you for that interview, for that discussion that we were talking about. Tippu Tip. Let me start this one off a little different. Let me talk to a capitalist pig. No, I'm kidding, of course. Let me talk to Buana first. Buana.
No, it's okay. I could be the oink. No, listen, man. I'm not tippu tips. There, I could use see today my air conditioner was broken, right? And I had to use a screwdriver to fix it. Now I could use that screwdriver to fix the air conditioner, or I could use a screwdriver to build a house. But I could also use that screwdriver to stab someone in the neck. I think it's how a tool is used. Capitalism to me is a tool. It's simply a tool. We use tools every day in the Western world, created by some extremist white supremacists. Let alone even we could talk about the institutions that we go into. Some of these guys was, virulent white supremacists, but they create institutions where many of us go to become doctors, lawyers, engineers, etc., to benefit our community. So I think it's how you look at a thing. I really think it's how you look at a thing. I think that it's a tool, and I think that it's simply a tool and an instrument, and it's how it's used. This black devil, he used it for nefarious purposes and nefarious reasons. I don't strive to do that. I don't strive to do that. And I feel like one of the instruments I use these things as one of the instruments because I have experienced to some degree the opposite of that. I have experienced nationalized economies where things don't work, where a lot of nepotism goes in, where you can't do the things that you want to do, even if you wish, because you have monopolized certain situation going on in certain economies. So I feel like to a degree that tool could be used for a poor man to achieve some level of financial freedom to do the things that he wishes, whereas he don't necessarily have to know a governmental official or be in his favor or in his back pocket to get things done. So I am a man from my experiences. It's just as simple as that. Now, and this is the reason why sometimes I contend with my socialist brothers. We see differently on these kinds of points. Shout out to Cam Verse. I think he's a brilliant brother. I think he's absolutely brilliant. But for me, I just think that we disagree on these kinds of issues and points. I think that capitalism is just a tool, and it's useful. It's a useful tool for us. Yes, maybe it started in nefarious ways. Maybe nefarious men used it for reasons that I don't particularly agree with. But I just think that it could be beneficial in terms of achieving some level of financial freedom for us, for our people. This is how I feel about it.
Appreciate that, Buana. Oni, what say you?
Yeah, so what I would say, I don't know if you guys heard that, but what I would say is, I think that I just feel like it's a bit of a straw man, and I think that's the problem. It's like I get it, it's like I wouldn't criticize socialism because, or I wouldn't criticize. I can't criticize Christianity because, let's say, Jeffrey Dahmer is a Christian. You know what I mean? I can't do that. I used to do that, and people will be like, "That's not how you do it." You know what I mean? Like that. Nobody's going to say that every Christian's perfect. And I'm not saying that. This guy is a capitalist or not, or what have you. But it's like, unless somebody says tippu tip is a great example of capitalism, right? Then when you refute that, it has more, social utility. But like, if nobody's really talking about tippu tip, it's like, okay, then you just learned about tippu tip. So I respect my brother Kamji Verse. I respect my brother Kamji Verse. That's for sure, right? And if y'all don't know, I think I actually did have an interview with. I had maybe a few videos with Kamji Verse back in the day, but you'd have to know. But either way, but what I'm saying is that yeah, it just feels like a straw man. It's like, okay, I agree, but see, Kamji Verse, what I like about Kamji Verse is that he's not really pro-socialist or pro-capitalist. He tends to be anti-socialist and anti-capitalist. But it kind of just like it gets lost in translation because he's really about the African mode of production, but it gets lost in translation when you're coming after the capitalists, as opposed to, like, let's say, the European mode of production or something, right? And that's where it's like okay, like what about it? Like I don't get it. Like nobody, if most of us say we don't like tippu tip already, and then, like, of course, if you look at the socialist paradigm, it's like tippu tip was an enslaver. You know what I mean? And most people kind of don't attach slavery with capitalism. In fact, like that Candace Owens videos, I guess they're all tied together. But like that Candace Owens video and the white boy responding, a lot of people kind of recognize capitalism as replacing slavery, and actually being the economy that goes against slavery, because you can't really work people, you can't really work proletariat like you will, like essentially the proletariat, like it's complicated, but basically, if you have a system where you do wage labor, you don't also want slave labor nearby. Either way, I don't know. It just feels like a strong man.
Wait, only you were on Camgiverse before?
Yeah, it's complicated, but yeah. Well, not on it, but yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, he was on my channel.
Oh, he was. Oh, okay. All right. With that said, Trigger Happy 262 plus in the chat says, I think capitalism is a system, political philosophy, and in a sense has an embedded psychology. I know many of you don't like the differentiation, but this is why commerce is a better descriptor. He says commerce is a tool that all economic systems have, yes, even socialism. Commerce is in African economic systems. Capitalism spells a way of life that we have to push back on. Erzuliism is out there. He says chasing the bag. Thank you for the super chat. He says chasing the bag will change everything. Thank you for that. Erzuli, thank you all in the chat. Keep the comments coming. I'll try to read as many of them as I can. In the meantime, let's hear from Real Black Gentleman. RBG, what say you?
Yeah, I actually I heard about this dude. I read about this dude like years ago. Like I was like, studying up on how, Islam and Arabs was running up in Africa. And this dude, like, those are like now there's this book, it was written by, some British folk, but it was just what it was just describing was how them Arabs, he was working with Oman and whatnot, trying to, supplying the Arabs and whatnot, but they were trying to advance into the Congo. This Tippu Tip and his son, Seifu, was trying to go run up all up in the Congo, and it's just how the stories of how the the peoples and the British or whatnot, it was a combined, push the Arabs out. Yeah, it's you can look at them right there. I'm seeing them, it's just like I know I can see that influence that that Arab. I see it. It's like slavery always comes, in all different colors, but it's mostly, it's mostly that mulatto-ish like flavor, man. It's like just Africa, the fact that he was communicating that Tippu Tip was knowing what was going on both sides of the ocean, like he definitely knew, what the business was at that time. He was, just trying to snatch some up and keep it pushing. I mean, he's a monster. I'm never going to like say you should go up and like bondage people. Lock them up, because people want to walk around and move around. Don't lock them up, and don't keep them in a room or no box or nothing like that. Totally condemn that. Like it's good to hear the stories of everything, because you want to know, especially like the slavery, what's going on in the Congo, what's going on that Mozambique. That Mozambique like Tanzania like connection. That's kind of where the Portuguese and the Arab kind of like meet up, and it's like a kind of a invisible kind of line, you know what I'm saying, between the two worlds. And even though, you know what I'm saying, things they mix up, like you can see patterns and you can see like trends throughout history. You know what I'm saying? Like it's an interesting, you know what I'm saying, fact of history, you know what I'm saying, soak it up and you know, just keep it pushing it and keep it onto your perspective. I'm gonna pass the mic.
Appreciate that, RBG. Trigger Happy in the chat says, what tippu tip teaches me, if you want to be a true capitalist, you can't be race first. You must be ready to sell your people out for the bag. If you are race first, you use your money to fund revolt. I want everyone to keep that comment in mind. Let's come back to that. Let me introduce our boy Carl this week. Carl, how are you?
I'm good. I heard y'all was talking bad about capitalism, so I decided to join the chat.
Oh God, I'm gonna get gagged up on tonight, man. They ain't here tonight. Oh goodness.
I heard y'all was talking bad about capitalism, so I decided to join up with y'all boys. So yeah, capitalism. The goal of capitalism is profits above everything. So would I say is Tippu capitalist? I mean, he really did put his profits in front of his people. That was more important to him than anything else. He you know, he's a And I think what Oni was saying about capitalism and slavery, I think Eric Williams had a really good book about how slavery would provide the capital for the Industrial Revolution. So the two economic systems go hand in hand. You know, it wasn't until slavery became too dangerous to continue that they ended it. So yeah, he teaches me he is a true capitalist, that he was willing to put profits above everything else, regardless of who he hurt, who suffered. Um, and he's a horrible person. You know, the fact that you know his house is still standing is kind of it's kind of crazy to me. But yeah, I definitely believe this man is a psychopath, and he does embody the tenets of capitalism, which does put the profits above everything, above human, above suffering, and above, you know, the environment, and just everything. I think eventually the system is going to either has to be destroyed, or it's going to destroy us. All right. So thank you. I'll leave it there.
Carl, before you leave, just
Yes,
for
of course.
everyone here, what would you say to Trigger in the chat, who says a thing that's kind of the problem with the topic, though? Anytime someone
Uh-huh.
hears capitalism, you all kind of assume that means pro-capitalism. So what are your thoughts, Carl? And then others could jump in after Carl.
Well, I kind of agree with them. I mean, what other economic system is there? I mean, I really do believe that we're going to have to switch to a socialist economy. Outside of that, then we're not going to, human civilization won't continue. So I do kind of agree with him when you're saying if you're anti-capitalist, you're pro-socialist, because what other option? And this could be just my lack of imagination, but I truly believe that we're going to have either socialism, we're going to have barbarism. And I think we're leaning towards barbarism as we can see in the state of the world today. So I would kind of agree with him.
Let me just say, as the only capitalist probably in here, that these things have real world consequences. Now, your brothers sitting up in the great United States of America. I'm sitting in the so-called third world country called the Bahamas, where gas right now is almost $7 a gallon. $7. Now, I feel that if there was more competition here, where more gas stations was here, maybe my gas prices wouldn't be $7. Maybe I could pay down to $5 a gallon. But right now, I'm paying American prices to live. I'm paying the human prices. We gotta transport that shit. And I would wish that more sellers was in the marketplace, so where it'd be more competition going, and it'll bring the cost of my gas down dramatically. That's all I'm saying.
$7 a gallon for gas is insane. I can't even wrap my head around that. Wow.
Yeah, I think we should touch on how, a lot of us sit in the West, and we're in the West, and we're like, oh man, blah blah blah. But like I said, this white boy does almost everything for us while we're in the West. And me, I'm pissed at it. I'm pissed at it. That's why, like I said, I'm people say bad boys move in silence, but like you already know, I'm finna get out. I'm finna get out. But the fact is that a lot of us are Westerners, and I mean I agree. Like I said, I have to write this book, and I'm gonna talk about politics, and so when you look into what communism means versus capitalism, of course you can see a third way. The best of both worlds, if you will. But I'm not going to condemn the communists and the socialists. I get it. The capitalists or the imperialists were a negative force on this planet. The imperialists were a negative force on this planet. But that's the thing, though. Like I said, I completely also get, like, I don't get when somebody's sitting up in the imperialist, in the belly of the beast, right? When they're sitting up in the belly of the beast and they're enjoying, their marshmallows and what have you, right? Like it's just confusing. There's that clip. I wish I could play it, but there's a clip from that movie, Five on the Black Hand Side, where the dude's like, we saw you with a white girl. And because we saw you with a white girl, and the other guy's like, hey man, she's an individual, don't worry, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, look, man, it's okay if you with a white girl. Just stop talking black. And that's how I feel about a lot of things that I see in America. It's like, look, it's okay if you win a white country, but just stop talking black because you're confusing people. Because people all over the world, because for some reason, I don't know, but a lot of what comes out of America becomes global. It becomes global. And the trouble is that when you're being hypocritical, when you're like, oh man, like, because black folk, because people in the other countries just don't understand what's going on. Because you're like, oh man, we dealing with racism and we can't get ahead and we got so little money. And then your houses are looking fly. You know what I mean? Like I tell you, when I was in Tanzania, retrospect, there was not one elevator in the whole damn country. No, sorry, not elevator. Yeah, elevator too. No, escalator. There was no escalator in the whole damn country. Right? Y'all, we in America, we can get fat. Like just fat. Like every other woman you see, she got wings. You know what I'm saying? Like she just big for no reason. You don't even see that in Africa. And you don't want to, of course. But what I'm saying is that, we let this white boy handle almost everything. And then we go up and we talk like we the most black person on the planet. We define blackness. And it's like, look, man, black is not this subservience. But anyway, I'm gonna just land a plane there. But it's just, we just confuse the people.
Afro World gave, I think, a great idea in the chat. I see RBG kind of seconded it. We should want to discuss more things going on the ground in the Bahamas. And we should, things that there's a lesson, that we can learn, or there's some awareness we want to bring to, a larger audience. We really should do that. And I'll say the same with Oni. I'm sorry, Barney, 1 second. I'll say the same thing with Oni. When you move to the continent, that's what we should do, when you're there, if you wouldn't mind, right? Once your internet is good and all that kind of stuff. But that's a good idea, actually. We should do that. Barney, you want to add something?
No, I understand that, but for our audience, I try to be related. I try to keep it universal, because sometimes we may get down the rabbit hole and our audience may not understand certain things. It's not, it's just I'm trying to appeal to the largest audience possible. But I mean, I'll do it. I have no problem doing it. It's just that we have to remember the audience. The audience is an international audience. So I try to discuss things that's internationally based, so the continuity of the conversation could remain kind of solid. But I'll do it from time to time. I sent you a video on something that was going on in the Bahamas before. And you just didn't play it yet. The prompt didn't come up yet because there's so many different prompts. But I try to keep the conversation as universal as possible, But I understand, though. I do understand, and I'll try from time to time to mention things.
Yeah, for sure. From time to time. Same thing with Uzuli. I saw Uzuli in the chat earlier. You know about something going on down in the hometown, that we could learn something from or get some larger awareness of different things going on in the Black world. Yeah, we should do that. Does anyone want to add any last thoughts here? All right. We'll go to Shoot the Breeze topic number 5, probably the last topic of the night. Remember, check out all the other shows on KWAZ Radio. Subscribe to the channels. Whenever they come up with new stuff, if you click the bell and subscribe, you'll get their new content. 4Kast is on often during the week. Bakari is on often during the week. Oni and I are weekends primarily now. Cassidra is on as well. And hopefully we'll get back Tan and them too. So check out those shows. Shoot the Breeze topic number 5 tonight. It's going to be, how will Africa adjust to life on Hothouse Earth? This came with a link as well. I think it's taking us to Twitter. No, it's taking us to YouTube. We'll watch the video and then we'll discuss it.
Temperatures have been soaring past 47 degrees in many parts of Niger for days. Granaries are bare and cattle are dying in Agadez. Livestock breeders are trying to sell off their herds to avoid further losses.
We don't comprehend this heat. It hurts people and animals. Sometimes we bring cows to sell them at the market, and because of the heat, the livestock can't stand up. They get sick from the heat.
The extreme heat is slowing down business in the city.
The heat is very high. I implore God to protect us. This year's heat has made us suffer. There are many power cuts. The heat this year is terrible.
The UN estimates almost 20% of Niger's population will need humanitarian assistance to get through the year. The government's released just over $450 million to support farmers hit by poor harvests. But it's only the beginning of what's known as the lean season.
In the Agadez area, which is a desert zone, the temperature rise is exceptional, often reaching 45 degrees. This is unbearable for biodiversity in general, like the plants and animals.
For now, there's little they can do, with temperatures expected to remain high over the next 2 months. Barbara Angopa, Al Jazeera.
For a second there, when that dark skinned brother came, I thought he was a Bahamian talking for a quick second. That's a short video. I'm going to play it one more time. I see some of y'all are responding to climate change in the chat. I'll read those comments live in a second. Let me just play this 1.5-minute video one more time.
Temperatures have been soaring past 47 degrees in many parts of Niger for days. Granaries are bare and cattle are dying in Agadez. Livestock breeders are trying to sell off their herds to avoid further losses.
We don't comprehend this heat. It hurts people and animals. Sometimes we bring cows to sell them at the market, and because of the heat, the livestock can't stand up. They get sick from the heat.
The extreme heat is slowing down business in the city.
The heat is very high. I implore God to protect us. This year's heat has made us suffer. There are many power cuts. The heat this year is terrible.
The UN estimates almost 20% of Niger's population will need humanitarian assistance to get through the year. The government's released just over $450 million to support farmers hit by poor harvests. But it's only the beginning of what's known as the lean season.
la hausse de la température.
In the Agadez area, which is a desert zone, the temperature rise is exceptional, often reaching 45 degrees. This is unbearable for biodiversity in general, like the plants and animals.
For now, there's little they can do, with temperatures expected to remain high over the next 2 months. Barbara Angopa, Al Jazeera.
Juana, how hot was it in Nassau today?
Oh, the temperature was on hell. You know, the temperature usually is on hell, but it's extra hell today because they had a heat wave, a recent heat wave, so it was bad, man. Coco. I sympathize with the Africans because at least, you know, in these countries, these parts of the world, you have your little AC, and you have your little ice from a refrigerator where you can cool the body down. But in these places, man, where you don't have these kind of access, I don't know, man. I don't know.
All right, thanks, Buana. Let's have from Real Black Gentleman on this.
Well, my thing is like I don't do the whole climate thing. I actually think it's like a hostile propaganda against Africa. Look, it's been hot. It gets hot in the summer. There's these things called seasons. You know what I'm saying? Because you know the axis of the earth and all that. So like every 100, every 360 days. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna look. It gets hot. I get that. I think that the broadcast in and of itself, the reporter, I'm always skeptical about a lot of things. The way the person, the dude was like, these things challenge biodiversity. Look, again, it gets hot, it does, but life finds ways to, cope. It stays in shadows, you know what I'm saying? Like livestock, you know what I'm saying, is not necessarily, you know what I'm saying, the most, you know what I'm saying, suited thing for like hot temperatures, because like it's just not that, you know what I'm saying, but like, life, you know what I'm saying, them, you know what I'm saying, what's out there is going to be what's out there. Look, I don't think that, summertime, every time it gets hot, they're going to talk about the climate. Every summer they're going to do this. And I think, you know what I'm saying, it's not cool. I think that, you know what I'm saying, we know that it gets hot. You know that you have to be prepared for summer. You have to be prepared for winter. You have to be prepared for the rain and for the wind. You have to be prepared for seasonal, changes. Buana made a point, you know what I'm saying, in Africa, you know what I'm saying, various parts, you know what I'm saying, the electricity ain't up, you know what I'm saying. It's getting there though. There are just more people. I mean, more structures, you know what I'm saying? Buildings like big old, it's true that big old concrete cities do capture heat. And I mean, a lot of people are tending to move to cities, and it does, things are real, things are, they do correlate to actually what's going on. But like, I'm not convinced by it. In fact, I think it's just a way, I will say it again, don't use fossil fuels. Okay, it's hot because of the climate, because people's burning, you know what I'm saying, the coal and the oil. So don't, generate no electricity, in a really, useful way to get AC, just, buy some Chinese little paper fans. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, I'm not with it. Plant some trees to get some shade. And that's true, a good shade, but the problem is it takes 50 years to get enough fucking leaves for the tree to make a difference. So you see where I'm getting at? You can't play with climate change. I rebuke that. And so like that's just me. I'm gonna pass the mic.
So just to be clear, RBG, you don't believe in climate? You don't believe in such a thing as climate change? Absolutely not. No. I can go at length as to why I don't. I understand that, like, you're not going to, I'm not convinced with the whole, like, carbon emissions into the atmosphere, greenhouse. I understand science. I understand the earth in space in, heat and convection, how heat radiates away from the planet. It's not, I mean, there is, water vapor does more, for heat, clouds, and I see it. I don't trust the UN. The part where the lady was talking about the UN. I'm not with it because it'll be like a Hegelian situation where it's like the same people who caused the problem
there'll be a problem, a reaction from the people. You'll be a fake problem, the reaction from the people, and then the fake solution, which would be some kind of like battery operated kind of situation. And I mean, you know what I'm saying? The crops, look, this is bad management to begin with, because people, you know what I'm saying, the people in power is greedy, and they don't, you know what I'm saying, they're not actually thinking about, you know what I'm saying, like, you know, what's the +1 on, like, you know, making sure that, like, you know, the whole civilization does have, like, you know, good water, you know what I'm saying, good electricity, you know what I'm saying, to combat the natural. I mean, it's always hot in Nigeria. It's in the desert. So it's like, this is one of those things where it's like, yo, it's like, it's hot, but okay, it gets hotter. Everyone knows this. Look, I don't want to ramble along. You don't want to sit here and have too many, you know, black people in the middle of the desert. It's climate change. It's getting really hot. I don't have time for it. I think, you know what I'm saying, look, be careful. Don't buy all these climate change, you know, theories come from white people. Period. Come on now. All these scientists in these university studies, not an African in the mix. Let's just keep it a whole one with this. I do not believe in climate change. Oh, I'm done.
Appreciate it. Let's have from Oni next on this.
Yeah, so you know, that's what I'm saying. Like, obviously, respect to RBG. I don't agree with what he said, but I respect to him. But that's the reason why I even bring up that I don't agree is because, you know, it goes back to that conversation earlier. You know, when we talk about, well, we don't agree with somebody, you know, what are the consequences? You know what I'm saying? And it's not like I would, you know, like, again, I'm not like, I think that this is not our country, so we're not really having it. But at the same time, like, what if, you know, I think the question comes before about what happens if you don't agree with somebody over something like this, right? And then somebody does something like, let's say, I don't agree with RBG, so RBG, you know, does me in on it or something like that, or the faction in power says, well, you believe in climate change, ergo you're gone, right? So it does become a slippery slope. Now maybe that's a straw man too. But I did want to engage on this article I put up, you know, 10 years ago about this climate change thing. And so this is a quote from I guess Thomas Schelling. Well, now I'm going to do the thing that we like to do and like quote a white boy, but this is a white boy talking about climate change. He says climate change would have greater impact in underdeveloped countries. Agriculture provides the livelihood of 30% or more of the populations in much of the developing world. While there is no strong presumption that the climates prevailing in different regions 50 or 100 years from now will be less conducive to food production, those people are vulnerable in a way that Americans and West Europeans are not, nor can the impact of the health be dismissed. Parasitic and other vector-borne diseases affecting hundreds of millions of people are sensitive to climate. And sorry, I think that wasn't the right quote. The right quote I was looking for was, oh yeah, this one, where it says, comes from a heading titled, "Why Should Developed Countries Do Anything?" And one of the quotes is, why might developed countries care enough about climate to do anything about it? The answer depends on how much people in developed countries care about people in developing countries and how expensive it is to do something worthwhile. Abatement, so on and so forth. For some reason, I thought I had the quote right, but long story short, the idea was that many people in the West, like the climate denial people, they know that that climate change is real. They know that. But what they also know is that it disproportionately affects the global South. Okay? And because it disproportionately affects the global South, the people of the global North say, we don't care. You know? And they push it onto our people so that our people will believe, yeah, it's not important. Right? Meanwhile, people in Africa could tell you, hey, look, yeah, I've like you have satellite proof of shrinking rivers or shrinking lakes. You have satellite proof of shrinking lakes. You have satellite proof of expanding deserts, you know, and so on and so forth. I kind of asked Koku, when was this video released that we're watching? Because a part of it doesn't make much sense, in the sense that right now is quote unquote winter in Africa, right? So I don't know if this is a recent video or not. When was this video? 2 weeks ago, yeah. So technically it's winter in Africa, so it should be cold. Well, I guess because they're in the equator, maybe not, but like usually, generally speaking, in the southern hemisphere experiences winter while we experience summer. But I guess they're probably, well, maybe they're not in the southern hemisphere. Maybe they are in the equator. But what I'm saying though is that yeah, everybody knows that like no, not everybody knows. The quote unquote powers that be in the Western world know that climate change is a thing. You know? Okay, so Real Black Genesis, Nigeria is in the north. Yeah. Yeah, probably because I think I vaguely remember that. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that everybody knows that climate change is happening, but it comes to, well, who's going to be most impacted? You know, the thing that we don't keep in mind is this: the governments in America right now, they said like about 25% of the Senate or the Congress is over 70 years old. You know, so a lot of the predictions in 20 you know, like I said, in 2010 and stuff, a lot of predictions were like, hey, in 50 years shit's gonna be really bad. Now if you're in your 60s, what you care about what's going on in 60 years, in 50 years? You know? And I don't think we take that into account, that, you know, one, the people in the West are like, who cares what happens? Like, we're in the North, who cares what happens in the South? And then also the people in power are like, we're 70 damn years old. You know, we're 70 years old. We're 80 years old. We're having, you know, we're in the middle of, like, we're in wheelchairs. We're having strokes. Don't tell me what's going to happen. Don't tell me there's going to be less rain in 2050. You know, now I do agree that, you know, biodiversity may adapt, but I also recognize that a lot of animals are going extinct. You know, that adapting is not a guarantee. It's a possibility. But all I can say is that, yeah, you know, definitely, I think, you know, when I see these kind of stories, I just say, look, man, we were trying to tell you 50 years ago. We were trying to tell you this 30 years ago, 20 years ago. We were ignored. And yeah, people are going to suffer. People are going to die. And you know, what can you say about it? What can you do about it? You know, hopefully it's not too bad. Or hopefully some of us, you know, Africans survive. But yeah, these white people are ruining the planet. And unfortunately for us, you know, this is the only planet that we know. This is the only planet that we can live on. And it's going a waste for humankind. And yet we're, you know, like we're just falling for the okie doke for some reason. That's all I'm saying.
Appreciate that. Only one. Did you want to add something here?
No, when people like Oni, who is a thinker, when people like him say that he wanted to go to the continent, and he seemed to be a little bit environmentally savvy, you know, I think that he could possibly bring maybe some solutions to the issues, because he's lived in the so-called Western world and he's been able to garner a lot of information. So maybe he could bring that know-how back to Africa and find possible ways and means that, you know, make it better for people living on the continent itself. But in terms of, I'm not an environmentalist, okay? But I would say that it seems that in the Caribbean, in the summers, it's gotten a whole lot hotter. You know, I mean, I understand hell temperatures, but it seems like hell 2.0 right now. And when it rains, there's a lot of flooding that occurs that never used to occur. And now Nassau itself as a country, as a state, is extremely flat. It's flat, no mountains, anything like that. So, you know, because of that, you know, the flooding is gonna happen, but it wasn't as severe as you see it right now. So obviously, to me, just based on observation, it seems like the environment and the landscape is changing. Do I attribute that to climate change? I don't know. I don't have any sophistication in it. Maybe RBG or Oni could tell me, but seeing it myself and experiencing summers in my country in the past and how it is now, I think that I could observe many changes in the atmosphere just in living, and I just feel like it's much harder. Maybe it's because I'm getting older. I can attribute it to that. So I really don't know. I feel the physical effects of it, and it feels to me like it's getting harder, and the flooding that occurs just even with light rain. It seems like it's very, very strange to me. So something is happening, but I don't want to, speak on the science of it. Like I said, I don't have the sophistication, environmentalist sophistication, but on just based on observation alone, I just think that something is actually happening.
Oh, sorry about that one. I didn't know you was done there. When went back in the 90s, I read in the Tribune that the Bahamas might sink in 2050. That was back in the 90s, right? So when you talk about what seems to be the rising water level, that sounds kind of troubling. That sounds kind of troubling. With that said, Kyle, what say you?
So yeah, we're all gonna die. We're all, I say this because it's very troubling, even in this late day, at this late stage, that people are still in denial about this. It's very disturbing. So, um, I posted this topic. I kind of want to bring attention because it is hot. The Gulf of Mexico is at 98 degrees in the surface temperature. So that temperature, it kills the coral off. So the coral is dying. Uh, we see all over the world. We got whales bleaching themselves on the ocean because who knows. So one thing they didn't talk about in the video, I think is very important, is something called wet bulb temperature. And to make a long story short, wet bulb temperature is a temperature at which your body can no longer cool itself by sweating. It's a combination of heat and humidity. So, the human body regulates temperature by sweating. When we sweat, it evaporates, cools us off. But what happens when the humidity is such to where evaporation is no longer possible? Where you have a combination of heat plus the humidity, that's going to kill millions of people who don't have air conditioning. We've already seen hospitalizations rise in states like Texas and Arizona and Phoenix. People are being hospitalized. They've gone for a month with over 110-degree temperatures. This is not normal. This is not something that, oh, it's just summertime. No, 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 no. It's not just summertime. We're in the fuck around and find out stages. And the worst part about it, this is going to be the coolest summer of your lifetime because it only gets worse from here. What happens when crops fail? You're going to have mass starvation. What happens when you don't have fresh water? You're going to have water wars, which is already starting to happen because people are going to start fighting over fresh water because it's not going to be available. And then on top of that, you have these corporations, these politicians who are steadily drilling for more fossil fuels, who are approving more contracts. And it's killing people. What can be done in this? Well, I don't know what can be done. I mean, I know what can be done. What has to be done? We have to be. It's Toussaint. It's time. It's Jean-Jacques Dessalines time. It's time to get the guillotine out because if we don't, then we're not going to have a viable civilization for humanity. I think life will survive, but it won't survive the way we know it. It's going to be a lot harder for our children and our grandchildren to find food and find shelter to exist on this planet. I know there was a comment about it being wintertime in the southern hemisphere, but at this point, there's almost no sea ice in the Antarctic. The sea ice levels are the lowest they've ever been. What happens when the sea ice melts in the Arctic, in the Antarctic? Well, that you're talking about the Bahamas sinking now. That's going to make it even worse. This is a real problem that we really have to understand. The people in charge don't care about fixing it. They're building bunkers. They're talking about going to fucking Mars and shit. They're going to abandon this planet and leave the rest of us here to die. So this is a real issue. This is not something that people are making up. There's too much information at this point. I don't know if you ever saw that movie, Don't Look Up. And it's such a, it was supposed to be a comedy, but it seems like it's a documentary at this point. So I'll leave it there. Thanks, Kofi.
I appreciate that. In the chat, Juana said thanks for making him more paranoid.
I apologize. I wasn't mean to sound like a prophet of doom, but damn.
Trigger Happy 262 says, I would also like to say there are many who have appraisals for the white man and his idea of progress and modernity. But look at how much it costs for them to be quote unquote modern. This is what you avoid. Earlier he said, we need to get these technologies cracking. Since white people are destroying the planet, you'll have to compensate. Ms. Vidya says, interesting, science is suggesting that we start producing meat for consumption to reduce climate change. Thus, the push for vegan and other protein consumption, like bugs, that is for general populations. Real Black Gentleman in the chat says, these white folks ain't giving up oil one way or another to power their air conditioning. And I don't trust these white folks ever recorded statistics. Does anyone else want to add any last thoughts here before we end at 11?
Yeah, I do. Look, this is my thing. It's not about, I get meteorology. I get climate. I understand the word climate. The word climate in and of itself is related to inclinate. It infers to an angle of things. Look, I when I say what I'm saying, I understand that it is hot out there for our people. It's hot everywhere, right? It's hot. You know what I'm saying? It's July 29th. You know what I'm saying? Of their calendar, right? It's hot. The sun is very high up in the sky. I get that. I get it. I get it. There are many more people on this earth. And what winds up happening is that these white folks got cameras. And these white folks can go up into a whole bunch of people's business at any given time, and they can sort out what they're telling you. Look, man, don't believe the hype. Don't do it. These white folks is coming regular direct. I don't care about the heat. We Africans, it's hot. I sincerely say that. Don't look, the coral, I'm sorry. I'm not one to sit here and say that, but I believe that, there's all kinds of extinctions and shit, you know what I'm saying, that have nothing to do with people. You know what I'm saying? All kinds of animals in Australia that don't exist. I get it. All kinds of animals in Africa that don't exist. Madagascar. All kinds of animals and stuff that don't exist no more. I get that. For me, talking about what we talking about in this world, what just happened a couple days ago, the heat, I get it. Look, I swear, the attention span, you know what I'm saying? We talk about our history in this land, in these United States. It's for me speaking in these United States. My peoples ain't been here but a couple hundred years. Lord knows we can't talk about what didn't happen 1,000 years ago in the United States for anyone to talk about the worst thing ever.
Man, we all gonna die, man. We all gonna die. We all gonna die.
About these people in this land. That's all I got to say. Don't believe these UN. How many Africans is on these computers computing what they talking about? I don't want to go much further, but I just have to say my piece, man. Think about it.
Man, we all gonna die, man. And with that mentality, man, we all gonna die. I'm sorry. There's too much evidence. We all gonna die, man.
You see why I said if you go take out some people.
Hey man,
I'm not saying I wouldn't. I'm just saying, like, when we talk about once, you know, because I'm like, wait a second, man, you know damn well, like, the planet is going out. I mean, I don't know, because I don't know. Like I said, maybe RBG's gonna take us out, which would be all right. But like, it is what it is.
I hope RBG is right, and I hope Carl is completely wrong, because if he is not wrong, you all brothers in America, you all need to make some room, because we will be a bunch of behemoths will be on banana boats.
America's not exempt. America is not. I mean, like I said, Texas is already feeling the heat. The southern states is already feeling this heat. America is not exempt from this. You might be better off near the Great Lakes, but if I was going to the Great Lakes, I'm going to the Great Lakes of Africa. You know, I might as well go to Lake Tanganyika. I'm going home.
Oh man,
I'm coming home, bruh.
Oh man, we are done. We are done. We are completely washed. So
like, I mean, okay, like for example, like, you know, we're talking about the rate of animals. Extinction is a normal thing. Extinction happens, okay? But when you have an extinction level, when you have an extinction level 100 times higher than normal, when they're predicting that within 300 years, most of the mammal species on Earth will be extinct. The largest animal on Earth will be the cow, because most of the megafauna that exists will be going extinct. This is something that is alarming. This is really alarming. When most people, especially like in the East, get their main source of protein from the ocean, and when you have fish populations collapsing, when you have more plastic in the ocean than you have fish, this is something that cannot continue. This is not normal. This is not, oh, it's hot, it's the summertime. No, I'm sorry. It's never been 100 degrees in the Gulf of Mexico. That's never happened before. It feels like a hot tub when you go in. I've been to the ocean last week. It was a hot tub. And then when you get out of the ocean, there's no breeze. It's just hot. So you're hot and wet, and that's it. This is not a normal thing. What happens when the next hurricane rolls off the coast of Africa? What happens when those storms hit that hot water? It's going to create mega storms. You can kiss the Bahamas goodbye.
That's real.
You can kiss Miami goodbye.
Oh goodness, I didn't want to think about it, man. You getting me?
Bruh, I'm sorry. It's true.
It's true.
And boy, you've lived through a hurricane. I've lived through a hurricane. That shit is no joke. That is no joke. I remember Hurricane Andrew when I was a kid, and everything was flattened. So what happens when these storms come? What happens when you know what? You may not give a fuck about the polar bears, okay? Who cares if the sea ice in the Arctic melts? Who gives a fuck about polar bears? There's bears everywhere, right? But what happens when that sea ice melts and some shit in that permafrost comes to life that hasn't been seen in the last 100,000 years? You know, I've seen Alien, I've seen The Thing. We've seen these movies, and these science fiction. But what happens when diseases that haven't been around forever come back to life? What happens when you have the Gulf Stream collapses, the Gulf Stream that brings that warm water from the coast of Africa to North America? What happens when that collapses? When places like California can't grow food? This is not no game. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Side note, I don't know if you guys saw this story. They revived a worm that was caught in the ice there for 46,000 years. Revived the worm, and the worm immediately produced offspring. Did anyone else catch that story?
Yeah, I saw that. I seen that movie.
Yeah, very interesting stuff. In the chat, I saw something that caught my eye. Was from Afro Native World. He said, on the real, though, these small Caribbean islands need to look at relocating to continental countries. See what happened to Montserrat. And for those who don't remember, Montserrat is where the Calypsonian arrow was from. They had a volcano erupt there, and they had to evacuate the island. I think most of those people went to France and Britain or something like that, but they had to evacuate the island. That was back in the 90s, I would say, early 90s. So yeah, That's a thought. What do you guys think about what Afro Native World just said? Should we attach ourselves to the continent? I guess those of us in the Caribbean.
That's an absolute fact. That's an absolute fact, because it would seem like, see, we believe that if the Caribbean had a horrible hurricane, I've lived through horrible hurricanes before, where the water completely decimates the Caribbean. We believe that our sanctuary is North America, right? And that is a falsehood, because the Americans could be like, no, where y'all think y'all going? You know, we gonna treat y'all like the Haitians. Y'all gotta have some money to come here. You know, y'all ain't coming here. So where you gonna go? Where you gonna go? And if the African country is still playing peekaboo, considering whether if we are Africans or not, where do we go? Are we gonna go sink into the Atlantic Ocean? And what's gonna happen to these people? What's going to happen? And I think that we should take precautionary measures now, because what Carl's saying, unfortunately, I don't like to hear it. I try to put my hand on my ears and say it ain't so, and I don't want to believe it's true. But after having lived through like real serious hurricanes where the whole island is completely decimated and shut down, you know what I mean? I don't know if we can handle 2, 3, 4 of these kinds of experiences. So where are these people gonna go? Where are they gonna go? Unless they have developed relationships with other kinds of people. What are you gonna do? What you gonna do? What you gonna do when Donald Trump say we don't want y'all niggers here? What you gonna do? You know, so I think that the planning needs to be in a developmental stages now. I think that needs to happen now. Maybe I'm paranoid. Maybe I'm speaking with a collect or drunk mind, but I believe that needs to happen immediately.
I don't think you're being paranoid. I think you're taking a analysis of the situation. You've experienced this before, so no, I don't think you're being paranoid at all. I think that, you know, as far as coming to the U.S., the governor of Texas literally told his the border patrol to push children back into the Rio Grande and not give migrants water. So the United States is not no sanctuary for y'all. I'm sorry. I apologize. And what's even worse is really going to happen is that as these climate catastrophes become more and more frequent, you're going to see governments respond in a very hostile way. You're going to see outright. I mean, we already, you know, Black people have already been dealing with racism and fascism for forever, but it's going to get really bad. I shudder to think where this is going to lead.
Anybody else want to respond to what Afro Native World said?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody should go to Africa. But I mean, everybody won't. And like we said, you know, like the thing that we have to come to terms with, that's why I say I come to terms with the fact that humans are animals. Okay, we're animals. And things happen to animals. You know? Unfortunately, things happen where the species that spread across the planet, you know, we originated somewhere, but we spread across the planet and we try our hand at different lands, and sometimes that backfires. You know, it's a little bleak, but that's what it is. I think that you, as an individual among these animals, have to say to yourself, what can you do? Because like part of me is even thinking to myself after this conversation, particularly, I'm like, look, I'm about to go to Africa, where it's hotter than it might be in the West, and maybe like Carl said, we're gonna be fighting over water, and I don't know how that's gonna pan out for me, or let's say my family as I build one, right? But you know, we have to come to terms with, you know, we played with fire and got burned. You know, we played with fire and got burned. The good news, at least, was that during this quote unquote pandemic, there was like a shortage of pollution, and there was some like kind of quasi reversal, if you will. Not complete reversal, obviously, because we went right back to business, but it kind of tells you that, you know, as the human race destroys itself, and that there's the accompanying cost with our self-destruction. But as the human race destroys ourselves, it's possible that, you know, in the long term, there's going to be some survivors who, you know, for whatever reason, whether they're in the right location at the right time, or just because the the destruction of certain industries allows for the earth to flourish again. Like there's a possibility of a positivity, okay, but at the same time, we just have to be like I say, look, honestly, I would just go to Africa because of the greater political threat. Because at the end of the day, the problem is, I mean, I'm not going to be Carl and say it's capitalism or whatever, but it is the imperialists, who Carl might say are the capitalists or whatever, but it is the fact that we did overplay industrialism, and I respect Real Black Gentlemen in the sense of we recognize that industrializing is something that we as African people need to do. We need to be bigger and better at our own manufacturing, right? We need to. So there is but that's the thing about the world. There's a cost for every joy you have on this planet. Every joy you want, there is a cost. And right now we're playing what we're into that cost, hopefully, I'm not saying Real Black Gentleman is right, but hopefully, the science is not, let's just say hopefully humans make it through this. You know what I mean? But
You know what? I'm gonna say this on, but you know what? I don't want to make this a human thing. This is not humans. This is white people. Let's keep it a buck. Africans, native, indigenous people have coexisted with the environment for hundreds of thousands of years. This is a result of white people and their death urge in their culture. These people are insane. They will just, even with all this shit going on, they're still talking about going to war with China. They still want nuclear war. This is not on us. This is on these
yeah,
goddamn
fucking
crackers.
Americans, man. That's what I've said. Americans are pieces of shit. They're literally trying to push China. They're literally trying to push Russia. These Americans are fucking psychopaths. No disrespect, but that's why I can't.
None taken.
I can't even. I'll tell y'all this, man. Real talk. I'll tell you this. Even before I understood African consciousness, I kind of understood there was something fucking wrong with America. I didn't know, before I even knew Europe was that bad, I knew that America was bad. You know what I'm saying? And that's just something I don't get the American flag stuff. I don't get none of that stuff. My fault. I gotta stop. Hold on. Good man saying only.
No. Ms. Vita was asking who was currently speaking. So I said,
I thought you were like, Odie, come on, it's after 11. I was like, let me shut up.
That too.
That's
right. All right, Oni, you done?
Well, yeah, I mean, you said it's after 11. I'm not trying to.
Trigger Happy 262 in the chat says, very big point. Also, to be more annoying, our African spiritual systems were highly ecological in ritual, practice, and in principle. So I think his very big point is to Carl Hezekiah. He says, we had whole rivers clear as a mirror, then Christianity came. All right, guys. It's 11. A little after 11. We're going to shut it down now. I want to thank my panel who was here tonight. Thanks to Carl, Real Black Gentleman, Pro Black Perspective, Oni, and Buana. Before we go, let's see if anyone has anything to shout out. Carl, you have anything you want to shout out this week?
No shout out. I enjoyed the conversation. I'm going to start being on a little bit earlier. I work on Saturdays, but my schedule changes, so I'm going to be free. So I'll be with you guys for the whole podcast coming soon.
All right. Appreciate it. Love it. Thank you. Real Black Gentleman, want to shout anything out this week?
No, I don't want to hold anyone up. I did a good talk. You know what I'm saying? Interesting discussion. Everyone have a great night. I'll see you around.
Yeah, thanks for coming through. I appreciate you. Oni, want to shout anything out?
Nah, also, hopefully RBG knows I'm just playing with him. But yeah. I do think that the climate change thing is a really serious thing that, you know, really does threaten, you know, like our existence as a people, and like even not just our existence as a people, but I really care because I know that Africa is going to suffer for it. Now, obviously, the you know, America and them are going to suffer too, but you know, like it's like chickens coming home to roost for them. You know, I think that we as a people have not done Pan-Africanism as we should have, and because of that, this white boy could just do whatever he wants, run amok, and we're gonna pay. Like the earth is gonna make us pay the consequence. But it is what it is. You know, hopefully, you know, we all like. Hopefully, you know, 2050 comes and we're like, hey, look, we're not underwater. But you know, and I mean, I don't think I don't know, like, because I heard those projections about even New York City, you know, being underwater and all that kind of stuff, and I think we have to just remember that, you know, white people are not that great at science anyway. So whether they can do a mathematical model to predict so on and so forth, you know, I don't think that they're that good. But at the same time, you know, whether there is going to be a weather difference, absolutely, you know, absolutely. And I get the whole idea of maybe it's not pollution, maybe it's just what the earth does, because the earth does do these kind of things. And even if that's the case, it's like we're still going to suffer as a species. And it kind of just sucks, you know, but you know, we just have to live with it and hopefully make the best of our lives as we can, and you know, have our families the way we need to have our families. But other than that, yeah, I'm gonna do a podcast tomorrow. That's it.
All right,
man, the planet is being killed, and the people who are killing it have names and addresses. I'd say go to niggas' houses, man. I'm sorry. All right, I'm done.
Buana, thanks for that. Buana, you want to shout anything out?
Yeah, shout out to all the brothers and sisters who would have financially supported the content that they appreciate. Shout out to y'all for showing that kind of love. Also, a shout out to all the brothers who contributed tonight. We showing the world that we are more sophisticated than the trivial topics that is on YouTube. We can discuss capitalism to environmentalism. So I mean, shout out to the brothers for showing their brilliance tonight and bringing it to the table. And that's really about it, you know. I'll see y'all brothers next week, man. Hopefully y'all live well until then. Okay.
Thank you for that, Buana. That's the show tonight. Let me shout out all of you guys who donated tonight. Amongst them, Ms. Vidya, Bakari, Afro Native World, Erzuli, and KW Dawn 7. Thank all of you for your donations. I'll put it to good use behind the show and the network. Trust me on that. I want to shout out my sister, man. Last Monday, my sister passed away, and that's why I wasn't here last Saturday, because she had been in hospice, and she made a turn for the worse. She transitioned on Monday morning. I want to thank all of you who reached out to me to ask about what was going on, why I wasn't around last week. My sister's name is Erica, so I dedicate this episode to you. I'll see you. Hopefully we'll meet again. You guys
Condolences, brother. Condolences. I feel you.
Yeah, condolences.
Thanks for that. I'll be back next week. I'll be here next Saturday. Hope you guys are here too. All right. I'll see you guys. Until next time, check out all the other shows on KWAZ Radio. You guys be good. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast with your host, Koku. If you like what you just heard, we hope you pass along our web address, bittermedicineblogs.com, to your friends and colleagues, and share our show to all your social media. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. This has been a KWAZ radio production. Join us next time for another session of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at Bitter Medicine Show, Twitter, Bitter Meds, Tumblr, Bitter Meds, Instagram, Bitter Medicine.